From the bustling streets of London to the quaint countryside, English homes exemplify comfort, refinement, and charm. Today on Homeworthy, we visit 4 homes across England: a 600-year-old farmhouse in East Sussex, a traditional Victorian terrace in Bath, a gut-renovated home overlooking the sea in Kent, and a colorful London townhouse. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Genevieve. Welcome to my home in the English countryside. I'm so happy you're here. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hello, my name is Genevieve Harris. Welcome to my 600-year-old house. You're sitting with me here in the lounge. We're nestled in the English countryside in the Kent-East Sussex border. Well, I was originally from Canada, born and raised, and when I was 20, I decided I just wanted to change. I wanted to study fashion, and I ended up moving to London, where I lived for 10 years. I loved it there. I met my husband there, but when we were ready to have children, we just wanted somewhere a little bit where we could have more space, and we were looking to buy a house, and it was this sort of East Sussex countryside that we loved. It's near the coast. It's just a beautiful, beautiful part of England, and yeah, and we're still only about an hour away from London, so it's quite accessible for that. Do you know, it's really funny because I was actually away visiting my mum and dad in Canada, and I was looking for a house. We were ready to buy somewhere, and I saw this house come up. And the minute I saw it, I phoned my husband and said, "You need to go and see it." I knew, even without being here, I knew we had to have it. I just loved it. And my husband went and saw it, and he phoned me and he said, I think it's the right one. I flew home a week later, I saw it, and we put an offer in on the house, and it was instant love at first sight, absolutely. So we've been here 6 years. We were ready for a project. I love houses that need a bit of attention. This one was off the chart. It needed so much help. It was literally falling down. It had been in the same ownership for about 60 years. The lady that lived here was given it as a wedding present, so it had been in the family for quite a few generations. It was really neglected. There were parts of the timber frame that were rotted. We really had to strip it back and rebuild it, essentially. Rumor, folklore was that King Henry VIII stayed here, which I think is incredible. Of course, going back that far, there's not always sort of, exact details, but a lot of the neighbors had said that this is, one of the places that he had stayed, which just boggles my mind. I can't believe, it kind of reminds you how old this house is. So, yeah. Welcome to our drawing room. This is the biggest room of the house. It's the room that you enter when you come through the front door. We believe that originally it was 2 rooms. So you can see by the pattern of the brick floor, there was probably a wall here. When we moved in, it was 1 big room, and we kind of use it as 2 separate spaces. I'll show you what we did. There's 2 fireplaces on either side of the room. This one we put in ourselves. So this log burner here, we put in ourselves. There was evidence that there used to be an old chimney here. So we put the log burner in, we added the antique Delft tiles, and my husband built the wooden surround here. So that's kind of the area where we sit of an evening. We've got a teeny tiny hidden TV, which I'm not going to show you. It's quite horrible. And we sit here, watch TV, cozy up by the fire, and this is our kind of family evening kind of space of the room. As you kind of progress further, there's this incredible big inglenook fireplace, which was one of the features when I saw the house that I just instantly fell in love with. These are called inglenooks. They're quite unique to this kind of house. It's a Wealden Hall house, it's called, and many of them have these great big open fireplaces. We added the log burner just for heat because it's quite a big room. It puts out a lot of heat, which it needs. This is kind of more of the space here when we've got Christmas and we've got friends around. We tend to kind of gather around here, have all the food out and drinks, and kind of it's the more social kind of when we're entertaining. This is more of the space when we've got the fire going. In terms of decorating the room, there was literally nothing in here, no colors. We had to redo all of the beams. They were originally very dark. They were kind of painted black, which was really kind of oppressive, and it kind of felt quite enclosed. So we found evidence that actually these beams were at some point in history lime washed. So lime washing is a kind of way of preserving beams that they used to do back a couple hundred years ago. So we lime wash them, and it kind of lifts, I think, the whole room and kind of makes it a lot lighter, a lot kind of brighter. And then what else did we do? We added a bit of color. So I found that in this room, it was kind of, I knew I wanted to add color, but I didn't want to kind of compete with the beautiful beams and the kind of whole aesthetic of the room. So what I did was I decided to add this beautiful green in all of the woodwork. So around the windows, on the doors, and around the fireplace. And I think it's a really lovely green. It's Edward Bulmer Invisible Green. And it's the whole idea of the color is to kind of bring the outside nature into the house. And I find it actually really, really easy to incorporate into textiles. So the curtains are Nina Campbell. We found these at an antique shop. A lot of the furniture we've got is antique. As you can tell, I've got a huge kind of passion for antiques and thrifting and that kind of thing. This coffee table is one of my favorite antiques. And it's quite funny actually, because I bought this coffee table before we owned the house. When I first saw the house, before we even exchanged and bought it, I knew that this coffee table belonged in this room because it's such a great long size. It's basically an old refectory table, it's probably 17th century, that had been cut down, and it's got really beautiful oak carvings on it. We found it at an antique shop in Lewis, and it's great because, you know, when we're entertaining, we can put all the food out on it. I've always got books, all sorts on it, and it's a great games table as well when we're doing Monopoly and everything. So it's a real kind of, I think, quite a good focal point of the room. So I love pattern and textiles, and I am an absolute sucker for a chair. I love an armchair. As you can tell, we've got a lot of chairs, too many chairs actually. I have to kind of stop myself when I see one. And I don't mind kind of mismatching patterns. So a chintz kind of floral chair, it's just my favorite thing. We found both of these ones at antique shops. We're really lucky where we live. This part of England, we're absolutely spoiled for antiques. And I just love the pattern with them, and the kind of greens and pinks is a kind of color combination that I just absolutely love. So we've got the chairs. Hops. Now I get asked so much. So many people say, what are those things dried over the inglenook? And they're hops. So they're what, you know, you dry to make beers, to make beer. This area of East Sussex is really unique to growing hops. Back in, 150 years ago, a lot of people would come down from London and pick hops, and that was a kind of a thing to do around here. And the back of our property actually used to be a hop garden, which was, you can still see sometimes they come up and you can see the hop vines. So basically these are the flowers, and we can get it at the local farm shop. You can buy them, they dry them, and they just sit up there, and I just think they're really quite special, and they're really unique to kind of the area. So that's my hops. I love knickknacks. I can buy them. I have too many knickknacks. It's an obsession of mine, and I love kind of combining them. I think that's in a home what makes it totally unique to you. So these ones here, I've got a kind of mixture. I've got lots of, I really like the old Staffordshire. Oh, I'll show you the Staffordshire kind of figurines. This one, was this the gym? Oh yeah, this one's quite naughty actually. My husband bought this for me, and it says gin and water, and the man that is having the gin looks a little bit kind of wobbly, and the one that's water looks very healthy and happy. And my husband bought it for me because I like a gin and tonic from time to time. So that one was quite funny. And I've got mockaware, which is beautiful. I love to collect mockaware. This one here I found at a car boot sale, and it's incredible. However, it's in a million pieces and has been glued back together, but it doesn't matter because it looks nice and it's pretty. What else? Yeah, lots of kind of Staffordshire pearlware. It's kind of all in the mix, and then a few kind of modern ones from Pentreath and Hall, Bridie Hall. The crown above the fireplace, I'll attempt to show you. It's quite heavy. There we go. So we got this in London. I loved it. I thought it was so cool. I didn't know where it came from. And I actually asked on my account some people saying sort of, what do you think it is? The consensus is we think that it was probably on top of the pole for the coronation, because this crown is a replica of the one that Queen Elizabeth wore. So I think it was a kind of coronation type celebration thing for in the town. It weighs a ton. I don't know really what the purpose here in the house is other than to just look cool. So we put it above the fireplace. So there are lots of challenges when you're dealing with a 600-year-old building. It has to be, all of the repairs and all of the work done to it have to be done really sensitively, and they have to be done by people that really understand the fabric of a building like this. Before we could start working on it, we had to get a lot of permission and sign-offs from the council because it's Grade 2 listed. It was incredible. I mean, the people that we had, we were very lucky. We had a team of people working on it that had worked on a lot of National Trust houses, and they really knew what needed to be done, how this building was made. And there was a lot of sort of big decisions before we could even start doing it. It took maybe 18 months before we could even start working on it. So there was a lot of consideration and time put in before the work started. I would say the biggest challenge for us was the fabric of the building is all timber framed essentially. So the oldest part of the house, the main bit of the house, is all made from an oak frame with infill of daub, which is sort of mud essentially, 600 years old. All of that had to come off before we could see what had to be done to it. And unfortunately, some of the oak beams, some of the main front oak beams had rotted, so they had to be replaced. They were, the whole front of the house was essentially opened up, so we didn't have any windows. And I remember there was one Christmas where we had literally tarps over the windows, and we had the little Christmas tree still, and we just sort of, I tried to make it as kind of normal as possible for the kids, but it was chilly. It was chilly. We had no windows for a good sort of 6 months in the house. So I'm going to take you over to the other side of the room. We've got this beautiful antique baby grand piano. I knew I wanted an antique piano because I grew up playing the piano. In Canada, I started when I was 4, and I missed having one. When we were speaking to actually one of the ladies that used to look after the lady before us that lived here, and she told us that there was always a grand piano here, a baby grand piano here. So that was it for me. I just thought, yeah, we do need to get one here. So I do play it. It's terribly out of key at the moment because it's in a window, and it does sound a little bit kind of off, but it looks beautiful, and once it's kind of tuned up, it's quite nice to kind of play some Christmas carols and kind of be jolly in here. So when we finished doing all the kind of structural work in this room, it was completely bare and there was nothing in it. We had all of our furniture in storage, and it kind of took us a few months to sort of think, how are we going to design it? And for me, the way I kind of work with interiors is it's quite organic and it happens quite slowly. I think if I make a plan, a grand plan for a room, it never kind of is exactly the way I want it. So it's kind of a process of addition and buying things and moving things around until it's right. Because with this room, it's quite large. With the two fireplaces, we tend to kind of put all of the seats near the fireplace. So we've got, you know, the two little seats here, the quite cozy antique armchair. Sit here, you get the heat of the fireplace. The kids tend to sit here. These are all antique ones. This is actually a new one, George Smith, and this is Oka. Brick floor is one of the features that I just love about this room, because it kind of adds a real sort of warmth to it. But it is quite cold on your feet. So we've done a kind of, you'll see in the rest of the house, there's a real patchwork of antique carpets. I love antique carpets. I don't overthink whether they go or match or any of that, which you might be able to tell. It's a little bit eclectic, the kind of color scheme in the house. But I think I don't know, I think it's quite relaxed, and I think it adds a bit of character, and it's obviously warms up the room a little bit with all the different carpets. This dog bag, we've got Bear, the yellow Labrador, who's ridiculous. She's very bouncy and very excited, and I will bring her out at some point to meet you. But I have one rule: she is not allowed up on the sofas at all, because she sheds a lot. And so I found this dog bed. I've been looking for ages for dog beds, and I find that a lot of the time they're not particularly attractive. This one I found at a car boot sale in the middle of a field on a Sunday morning at 7 o'clock, and I just thought it was really, really sweet. I love wicker. I think it really kind of adds a little bit of warmth to a room, and it's big enough that it fits her. I've been, this is William Morris, the little dog insert in it. So she feels quite posh when she gets into her fancy dog bed. This painting is, I have to say, my favorite painting in the whole house. We've got, my husband loves artwork, as do I. However, he bought this painting without me knowing, which is always a little bit risky. But when it arrived, I was just blown away by it. It's called The Serbian Dresses, and it's by an English artist, Jean Inglis, her name is. And we think it's around 1945, around there. We found it at an auction. I just absolutely adore it. I love the colors in it. I love their expressions. Everything about it, whenever someone sees it, they're sort of drawn to it. It's just got a really lovely feel to it. And of course, I just love the beautiful dresses that they're wearing. It's just so, so pretty. I think it was really, really important for us to maintain the kind of historical aspect of the house, and to maintain a lot of the kind of original features. Houses like this are rare, and they don't, you know, I think when things are done to them to modernize them, you can't put them back when things are taken away. So we really, really wanted the house to kind of to be as sensitive as we could be with the restoration. And I'm really kind of careful to say it wasn't a renovation, it was a restoration. So we really wanted, instead of changing it, we wanted to put back and as much as we could into the house the way it was originally built. We wanted to kind of maintain the kind of authenticity of the house. I think my personal style for interiors, it really changes according to what house I'm in. With this house, it was quite simple, I think, in lots of ways to kind of decorate, because it kind of just dictated how it should be. It's got kind of a really strong look anyway, with the beams, exposed beams, the inglenook fireplaces, exposed bricks. So I didn't really want to compete with that very much. I didn't want the interiors to kind of overpower the kind of the look of and the character of the rooms inside. With the kitchen, we had to completely rebuild the kitchen. There literally was no kitchen. So I really did want to create something that looked like quite timeless, really. It looked like it could have been there in the 50s, or it could have been there, you know, in the 80s, and just quite authentic and natural. So I've tried to kind of make it look as kind of comfortable and authentic as possible, while still putting a bit of our character into it, which I think you can do with you know, with the soft furnishings and curtains, things like that. You can put your own kind of mark on it. So next door is the dining room. I'd love to show you. Come and follow me. Okay, welcome to my dining room. This is again in the oldest part of the house. So it was built around 1420, very, very old indeed. This is where we have our kind of more formal dinners. We'll have Christmas dinner, Easter, all of that. It's very cozy. The first thing we did was put in this beautiful big log burner that puts out lots of heat into the room. Again, you've got a slightly smaller ingle nook here, but it's quite the kind of focal point of the room. I've got my Delft plate that we found at an antique shop, and this old antique sword that my husband insisted on putting up. The lights in this room I wanted to keep quite gentle, and I didn't want them to be too harsh. And these scallop shell sconces I think really do the trick. They're real scallop shells. They're brass kind of sconces, and they kind of give the illusion of candlelight, which I really love because it's quite a kind of cozy dark room. We've got the refectory table here that seats 6 to 8 comfortably, but I like to squeeze people in. I think kind of the cozier the better. It gets lovely and warm, and it's just a really lovely place to kind of have a big feast. With the artwork in this room, so this is actually a really special painting of ours. It's of Frank Gresley, who is my husband's great-great-grandfather, and it's painted by Harold Gresley, his son. And funnily enough, he found it on eBay by searching them. They were actually painters mostly on pottery, but his son did a lot of portrait paintings, and so we were really, really lucky we had it refurbished and framed. So he sort of takes pride of place here, looks over us when we're having our feasts, and I think he's just got a really lovely, kind face. Again, as you can see, we love our china. This is old Japanese amari, and then we've got the bowls here as well. We tend to kind of collect things when we go to markets, antiques centres, all of that. It's very hard to say no when you see these beautiful things. We're getting to the point where we might have a little bit too much. The kind of space on all the furniture is starting to get filled up a little bit. But yeah, this is a beautiful kind of 17th century oak side table. It's great for all of the linens, all of the cutlery, that kind of thing. My husband's humidor for his cigars that he brings out at Christmas time. What else have we got? So most of the furniture is oak and antique in this room. I think it just suited it really, really well because of the oak beams. We didn't lime wash these ones. We were lucky. They hadn't been painted. They just had a really lovely oak patina. So we left them as they were. And it does kind of make it a lot more cozy, a lot more kind of, to me, I think it's a real winter room. At Christmas time, it's just so, so special in here. I just put out a few bits here just to show you. I love setting tables. I love kind of going to town, putting things from the garden, foliage, that kind of thing. I really love these cabbageware, which is great. They're by Bordallo, and the thing I love about them actually is that they're not particularly precious. You can put them in the dishwasher, they're easy to use, and they're just great kind of everyday dishes. So this is actually, this massive blue and white jug is I found at a car boot sale for £10, just the best find ever. And I think what it is, it was part of a wash basin, so a jug and wash basin. Before they had toilets next to the bedrooms, they would give you a big bowl and a water jug to wash up in. So unfortunately, I don't think the bowl survived with it, but I've got this beautiful willow pattern jug. Well, I would like to think that dinner parties at our house are fun. I hope people are relaxed. I just want them to feel welcome. I love to cook. That being said, I don't tend to do lots of courses and things that are super, super fancy. I like to just put things out. People can help themselves, lots of sharing platters, things like that. There's usually lots of music on, lots of wine, and I hope that it's all, it's usually a really good night. One of the features I love about this room is the view. So when you stand here, you can look outside. There's a beautiful big pond. We've got ducks, and you can often see them sort of swimming around on the pond. And it's just a lovely, because the windows are quite low, you can just sort of stand here and gaze out. So I think it's the view from this room I really, really love. My particular style, in terms, if you compare all of the houses I've lived in, they've all been quite different. But I suppose the one common thread would be that I do love colour, and I like to introduce it in kind of unexpected ways. With this house, it was interesting because there was lots of beams on the walls and things like that. I had to, instead of sort of overpowering it, I added colour on the woodwork and on the windows and with textiles and things like that. I think it has to sort of have a bit of a sense of humour as well, a house. I don't like houses that are too stuffy, that are too kind of too serious, taking themselves a bit seriously. I want people to be relaxed, and I like having a bit of humour to the house, yeah. What do I love most about this home? I think hands down it has to be the kitchen. It's where I spend most of my time. It's where the kids spend most of their time. I am always cooking in the kitchen. It's got a big Aga, and I've never had one before, and it took me a little while to learn how to use it, but it is truly the heart of the home. It's always on, it's warm, the pets gravitate towards it, and it just creates a really cozy, comfortable vibe in the kitchen. So I would have to say that my favorite part of the house has to be the kitchen. So the next room over is my favorite room. It's the kitchen. Come and follow me. So welcome to my kitchen. It is my favorite room of the house simply because we spend the most time here. The heart of the kitchen has to be the Aga. I absolutely love it. When we first moved in, there was just the one old oil Aga, and then we moved it over and we added an electric companion. The Aga stays on the whole time. It's lovely and warm. Often there's a cat or a dog snuggled up next to it, and people just, when they come into the kitchen, just always naturally kind of gravitate towards it because it is so warm. And I love it. It's great for doing roasts and kind of slow cooking, and it's just my favorite part of the kitchen. The color of the cabinets is Haymarket by Mylands London. I get asked all the time, and it took us 3 or 4 tries to kind of get the right yellow. Funnily enough, we started off with them being dark green, the cabinets, and it just didn't feel right. It was a little bit too dark. And it just didn't sit well, and we wanted to change the color, and I love the contrast of yellow and blue together. As you can see, I've got lots of blue and white willow pattern in the kitchen, and I love the kind of combination. So I thought I'm going to try and find a yellow. We went through 2 or 3 colors, and then finally we found this yellow, and I love it because it's really, although it's very bright and very kind of cheery, it's not overpowering. I think it's got a lot of character, and it kind of harks back to kind of a 50s look to it, which I wanted the kitchen to kind of feel like. So when we got the house, the kitchen was 1960s. It was in a really bad state. All of the cabinets were kind of falling apart, and there was unfortunately not much we could salvage from them. So it was completely gutted. And we had to design the kitchen from scratch. So to me, the most important thing was to kind of create a space and create a kitchen that looked like it had always been here, that we hadn't just come in and built a new kitchen. So for that to be achieved, we had to put a lot of kind of research into what the proportions of these cabinets would have been like when this kitchen was built. So this kitchen is sort of 1790-ish, and so Georgian. So we looked at lots of kitchens of that era. What did they look like? What was the sort of the shapes of the cabinets? And we kind of sketched it out, and we had a really lovely kind of, 2 fellas built it for us. Things like the knobs and the latches, things like that, we all sourced antique and secondhand so that they didn't look too new. They looked, I wanted these things to look like they've always been here. And I think it really, because these are antique, it kind of tricks you into thinking that they have. All of the appliances, we do have a fridge, we do have a dishwasher, but very cheekily, we've covered them up with the cupboards so that when they're not in use, it kind of gives the illusion that you're harking back to older times before the appliances. So as you can see, in most of my rooms, this is no exception. I have lots of knickknacks up on shelves. The majority of this is mockaware that has been found at antique shops and car boot sales. A lot of it has been sourced locally, so it has come from old pubs that were around in this area. People used to actually drink their beer out of these mugs. And I just think the colors, the blues and the peaches are just really cheery. I have to have my Wally dogs. I think they're very sweet. They've got their kind of startled expression and they always look slightly shocked. And yeah, I've got lots of ceramics. That's kind of my favorite thing to kind of add color to a room. These are amazing. So these I found at a reclamation yard. They're bull's heads, and they came off of the side of a butcher's shop that obviously had gone out of business, and we've attached them. We've got two of them attached to either side of the big inglenook. So this table, there's actually a really funny story with this table. When about a week after we moved in, we were starting to decide what we were going to do. We're going to do lots of work to the house. We didn't have a kitchen table, and we'd ordered a wardrobe upstairs in one of the bedrooms from an antique dealer, and they came to deliver it. And I was chatting to the lady, and I made her a cup of tea, and she said, "You haven't got a kitchen table?" And she said, "Would you like a kitchen table?" I said, "Yeah, well, I guess so." And she just brought this out from the back of her van and said, "Here, you can have this kitchen table." So it was very, very generous of her. She was lovely, and we've never kind of wanted to change it. It just works. It's really wobbly. It's not completely flat, but I think it kind of is the perfect size. And the fact that it's round means that everyone can kind of sit next to each other and see each other. And it's just really charming. I think it works really, really well in the space. I found this at a car boot sale, and it's actually a candelabra, so it's not electric. I light the candles when we have friends round. It kind of really creates a kind of cozy atmosphere, and I love candles. I just think there's nothing like candlelight when you're entertaining. It's a must for me, and it was great. The only thing was, it was when we first got it, it was a little bit higher, and I actually ended up burning the top of our beam. So hence us getting a thing. My husband told me off, and we had to add this to it. So it's not so much of a fire hazard anymore. I think since we've moved here over the last 6 years, I have perfected the roast dinner on Sundays. It, to me, is just a given. On Sundays, we always have my family around and sometimes friends, and we will always do a big roast dinner, roast chicken or roast lamb, roast beef, and this aga is just the perfect thing to cook roast potatoes in. I do a mean Yorkshire pudding as well. But yeah, roast dinner is always on a Sunday, and I think that, to me, is my favorite thing to cook. Like all of the rooms, the things that we've put up on the walls, the kind of bits and bobs all around the house have been a very kind of, it's an eclectic mix. It's things that we found from around this area. This one here is a old sign from a little convenience shop that was in this area that had gone out of business. And it's a little ice lolly sign, and it's all hand painted. It's an original one, not a replica. And it was not expensive, but I just loved the kind of graphics on it, and I loved the color that it had. And I thought just perfect for the kitchen, because the kids like ice lollies. And one more thing I have to show you that, again, goes back to that idea of I love having a bit of a cheeky sense of humor in the house. And this one is the perfect item to show you that does have a cheeky sense of humor. I have no idea what it is. I know it's a spoon, a massive wooden spoon, and I don't know what it was for. If it was indeed for anything, it might just have been for aesthetic, kind of for houses where people thought they had to have a massive spoon. I don't know. So a common theme, as you're probably starting to see, is I do like bits and bobs, knickknacks, all of that. And because we have so many of them, we've had to add shelves to kind of home all of these things. This antique Delft rack my husband got from an antique shop, and it's just the perfect kind of size to display these old Amore plates and blue and white plates. And I love blue and white. I desperately try to keep it monochrome so it is just blue and white. But then my husband will come home and just plop something on it that doesn't match, which drives me mad. But that's the way it is. Yeah, and I've got all sorts, kind of old little antique eggs, little bird's eggs, things like that. It is very eclectic. A little bit of Victorian naughtiness, lady showing her knee. Now I'm going to show you the tiniest room in the house. I think it's very sweet and a little bit magical, so I'm going to show you. Come with me. So this is our larder. It is a proper old Victorian larder. It's where I keep all of my kind of jars, preserves, all of the jam. I've just made some marmalade, so I keep all of that in here. We've got some duck eggs that the ducks have laid. We keep Aylesbury ducks, and they lay eggs every day, so we get them. And it's got a beautiful tall ceiling here. I've always got herbs drying, things like that. And we didn't do too much to it. We kind of just kept it the way it was. It's a beautiful space to kind of keep all of your preserves and things like that. So yeah, we kind of wanted it to sort of stay how it was originally built. It is all the overspill. We keep our wines. We've got a wine cellar down below, but it's kind of nice for that kind of thing. And because it's so high, it's a tiny space, but because it's so high, we added lots of antique meat hooks to kind of build upwards. I've got an affinity for wicker. I love a wicker basket. And so, as you can see, my collection of wicker has, it's kind of gotten out of hand, but... So the reason there's no heat in here and the ceilings are really high is because they wanted this room to be very, very cold, because obviously it was at a time where they didn't have refrigerators. So there were meat hooks, and there was actually on the window a metal kind of grill to stop any of the flies coming in. So this was, back in the day, there would have been game hanging from the ceiling, and the meat would have been stored in here, because this was essentially the refrigerator. If I want to open the window, you chuck that and you can open it. This actually was in the house. She'd left it. It's actually quite interesting. This bit of furniture was here when we moved in, and there's a funny story actually. The lady that lived here used to keep her ducks in here, and we had the lovely experience of when we moved in, I had to clean out this room. So it was a treat for the senses when we first moved in. When I was 20 and I moved from Canada to London, I really wanted to work in fashion. And I was very lucky. I got a job at Liberty's in London, and I worked there for 6 years, and it was my favorite job. I loved it. I was a manager there, retail manager, so I managed the men's wear and then the ladies' wear and the ground floor. So I really got a sense of what I wanted to do there. And it was interesting because it's such an incredible store in London that they also do interiors as well. And I think working there, although I wanted to be mainly fashion, I did get my first taste of interiors, and they just have such beautiful kind of eclectic things for sale there, and it's set the seed, I suppose, for me, for my love of interiors, working there really. And then as I grew older and we had a house, and then we moved and had another house, my kind of attention did start to shift from fashion into more interiors. And now I with my Instagram account, I kind of talk about and show anything that I'm interested in. So it's not just unique to interiors. I do still do a little bit of fashion, a bit of gardening, a bit of cooking. So I suppose in some way it's a real kind of lifestyle account, my account now. I don't think I would, although I miss Canada, I miss my friends, I miss the scenery there, it's so beautiful. I don't think I would move back now. My mum and dad live here now, most of my family are here, and I think At heart, I was a London girl, but now after living in the English countryside, I think we'll probably stay here, yeah. So now we can go upstairs. I can show you the bedrooms and the second floor of the house. Follow me. Okay, so the first bedroom is on the west side of the house. The traditional name for this room is actually called the solar. What's really unique is the windows. The whole front of the house, all of the windows had to come out. They were all rotten. And when we had the historical architect have a look at the house, he found evidence of these really beautiful arrowhead windows. And the council allowed us to put them back in. So at some point they would have been like that. I think they're really, really sweet. They've got just a real kind of charm to them. And I love them. They look out onto the countryside. And the pond, which is always a kind of focal point. The other window that's really interesting in this room was originally just leaded, but again we had to redo it. And they found that they had these mullions in it. So when this house was built, it was before they had glass, so there weren't any actual traditional windows. They would have been more like this with shutters on them, wooden shutters. So you can imagine how cold the house would have been when it was first built. I love this painting. I knew it would really, really go well in this room because the actual the feeling of this room is quite light and quite airy. It's got a high ceiling, and I really wanted a kind of hit of colour. And it's an English artist, again, sort of 40s, we think. And it's Harold Riley, and it's of his daughter, which I love. And I think she's just got such great character, and she's got really arresting eyes. I just think it works so beautifully in this room. So this actually is a radiator cover that we found. We found 6 of them at a house clearance, and the radiators that we have in some of the rooms aren't particularly good looking. They're just basic utility kind of radiators, and so this is perfect. It kind of covers it. It looks like a kind of oak piece of furniture. They've got metal kind of grates on it to radiate the heat, and I think it kind of just serves the purpose really well. I love textiles. I love kind of quilts, all of this. This is a Durham quilt, cotton. Found it in an antique shop, and I love the kind of punchy color of it. And these cushions I actually had made. I found this fabric at an antique shop, and I absolutely loved it. It's vintage Sanderson, and I wanted big pillows with big ruffly frills on them. So I went to a seamstress locally and just designed them for her to make the ones with the big ruffles. So I love them. I think they're really punchy colors, and they just add a kind of a bit of flounce to the room. This bed frame is actually a modern one. We've had it a few years, and we just wanted something really simple. It's not antique, but super comfy, and it kind of works. It doesn't really compete with the rest of the room, so it's kind of modeled after a Victorian design. So the rugs in this room, carrying on that theme of a bit of a patchwork, we've got all different types. I love the colors, and I like the mix of the colors. The floorboards are incredible, actually. They're really, really wide oak floorboards, and it's because it's the oldest part of the house. They're original, so they're sort of 450, 500 years old, and they've got the old kind of metal nails in them. They're just really quite impressive, the size of the oak floorboards. So this fireplace is actually, we've just finished it a few months ago. My husband made all of the surround. But previously it was just exposed brick, and there was no grate or anything in it. It's not a working fireplace, so the chimney's working, but it's not connected to this particular fireplace. But we did it, purely for aesthetic reasons. And the grate, the insert we found at a reclamation yard, and I loved the blue, and I decided to pick up on the blue and do this kind of punchy, really lovely blue. It's Cook's Blue by Farrow & Ball. And again, it's a really good, I think it's a good example of how in an old house, you still can be quite brave, I guess, with your color choices, as long as it all ties in together and doesn't compete too much with the kind of historical references. And I really like how the blue picks up the blue in the sky in the painting. I think what gives a home a soul, the homes that really speak to me, the ones that I love the most, are the ones that the owners, the occupants, have really relaxed and listened to their own kind of identity, and they've created a space that's just really unique to them, as opposed to looking and getting reference from other people's taste. I think you can always get inspired by there's lots of, you know, sources, Instagram, magazines, whatever. You can, it's great to get inspiration, but I think there's a real line between crossing over from inspiration and just creating something that is not authentic to you. Some of my, you know, the places, the homes that I've seen can be completely different taste or style to mine, but I find them really comfortable and I love them because it shows that person's, the owner's kind of character. I think those are my favorite houses, yeah. Growing up, my mum and dad are English. They moved to Canada when they were younger, and because they were living in Canada, and I think particularly my mum really missed England, she filled her house with lots of kind of English china and you know, textiles and print that were quite sort of English countryside. And as I was young, I didn't really notice it, but I think you sort of absorb it, and when you get older, you think back to it and you realize why you have a kind of affection to certain things. So I think, thinking back, my mum was a big inspiration with her style, and my grandmother was similar. She was English as well. And I think, you know, now in modern day, when I'm on Instagram, some of the accounts and some of the profiles that I really love are ones that are kind of, you know, they're listening to their own character. They're kind of doing their own thing, and kind of breaking the boundaries a little bit. I like people that kind of don't go with the rules sometimes. And those are the kind of accounts that I really like, that speak to me. So next, I'd like to show you one of the bathrooms. They're quite special because they're practically untouched since the 60s. So you're in a bit of a time warp when you see them. Follow me. So this is one of the main bathrooms in the house. It is practically untouched since the 60s. It's got the original sink, toilet, bath, heater, all of that. And there's a kind of reason why it is untouched. We did have ideas to update it, to change it. And every time we went and had an idea, we kind of thought, actually, it's really charming the way it is. And if we take it out, you're never going to see it, you know, it'll be gone. And it's a little bit of a snapshot of what bathrooms were like in the 60s. So instead, what we did was kind of give it a little bit of a facelift. So we removed the really, really grotty carpet. It was disgusting. We removed that. I painted all the floorboards. We gave it some new plaster. The windows obviously are new. They're all remade. We lime washed the beams as well to really kind of clean everything up. And then just added a few kind of features to sort of make it a little bit more homely. The thing I love about this room, it's a lovely big bathroom, but I actually wanted it to feel more like a space that you could just relax in as well. So not two bathroom. I call it the unbathroom. So for example, I put a little armchair. I've got, you know, a little wardrobe to put your bits and bobs in. And it's kind of, it's a nice place, a carpet down. I put the carpet here, and I think it's quite charming, and it's really kind of quite relaxing. It's a really, really lovely space to have a long bath and just relax. So this, I love. We found this at an antique shop. It's an antique perfumery cabinet, and I just think it is so special. The minute I saw it, I thought, I need this in my life. We haven't got room for it in the bathroom, so I put it in the hall just outside of the bathroom, and it's just the perfect space to put all of your perfume. It's quite unusual to see English ones. Often they're French, but this was an original English one with the original wobbly glass, and wherever I go, I will take it with me because it's just such an unusual one-off piece, and I love it. I really wanted to quickly show you a really special part of the house. This is my son's bedroom, and it's the original hall of the house. So it's got this incredible sweeping high ceiling, vaulted ceiling. Originally, the floor wouldn't have been here. It would have gone all the way down to the lounge, and people would have just had a fireplace on the ground and look all the way up to the top of the roof. The original crown post, which is unique to this type of house, a medieval hall house. And what just boggles my mind is that this huge oak beam would have been lifted with chains and manpower, because of course they didn't have any machinery when this house was built. So it just is an amazing testament to the strength and the skill of the people that built this house. So I've tried to keep it relatively minimal in my son's room. However, this is a tidy day. Most days there's Lego everywhere. But I've added a few bits that I just love. This trunk is so cool. Look, it's got all of the rosettes. It's from, it's a show box. So from a county show when they used to show the sheep, a local farm. It has all the dates where they competed, and they would have got these rosettes for showing their prize sheep. And the thing I love is that it came from this area, from the local. So I'd like to keep it in the area. I think it's a little bit of history, you know, to this part of England, which I just think is really, really sweet. Basically, there's a big mezzanine in this room, and the reason it's there is because back before there was heat and people just had a fireplace, with the hot air rising, it was much warmer to sleep higher up in the building. So people would have slept up there, and we did sort of think for a while it would be really cool to build a little balcony and have my son's bed up there. We never really got around to it, but it's just a kind of quirky feature, again, of this very ancient house. Home means to me, it's got to be family. I think it's, for me, the home is where everyone can come, get together, spend time together. We have the best Christmas here. Everyone comes. There's always stuff cooking in the oven. Everyone's got their glasses full, and it's fun, and there's music playing. And I think a home is nothing without having your family around you.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Sean. Welcome to my home in Bath. I'm so excited to show you guys around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
My name is Sean Symington, and I'm an interior designer based in the UK, and we are currently in my home in Bath. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, and I moved to London, I guess, like 8 years ago now, and I worked for various interior design firms in West London, and then I sort of started my own company, and yeah, I just settled. I didn't think I was going to stay, but I did. Here I am. Almost a decade later, I'm still here, so I guess I like it. So the house is a Victorian terraced house. It's not that special or spectacular, but it's in a great location, which is why we bought it, because it's kind of in the center of town, so we're able to walk everywhere, go for dinner, and lovely restaurants in Bath. Bath's a lovely city. It's a Georgian city, so it has gorgeous architecture, and there's lots going on here. There's lovely art galleries, and there's a really good sort of design scene here. And we bought the house because it was sort of, you know, a great deal, a great project. It's perfect for us because it's just my partner and I and our little dog Penny. So it's perfect size. So we did so much to the house. We dug down at the back to make a higher ceiling. it had one bathroom originally, and sort of every room was a bedroom because obviously it was for students. There's a big university here, so it was very much a university accommodation. So we had to do everything. We had to gut kitchen, we moved the bathroom upstairs, we divided a bedroom in half to create a bathroom on the first floor, which would serve for the bedrooms. And then we created a utility room at the back of the house, which didn't exist. So a lot of steel beams and all that jazz, which was probably the most in-depth and the most laborious kind of the interior architecture element of it. So, I mean, it was, in general, a lot of work overall. It was sort of the whole house. It ran over budget, over time, you know, always the same situation. We just wanted to get in so badly because we were renting for the year that we were renovating. So we couldn't wait to get in. And there was a few things I probably did prematurely, like I love to see rooms finished, so I kept moving furniture in and, you know, finishing a room, and then it would get all covered in dust and have to clean the whole thing again. So definitely don't do that as some advice. Just wait until it's completely finished. I just wanted to see something done, you know, and I feel like we would take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 step forwards, 1 step back. It was a lot of that. It was very stressful, but it was fun. And I mean, it's a bit like having a baby. I think you sort of forget about it and you're just like willing to do it again. Like I'm like, on to the next project, even though it was so stressful at the time. Welcome to the front entry hall of my house in Bath. As it's a traditional Victorian terraced house, the hallways are always so narrow. We opted to leave the wall up so that we got a nice formal drawing room. I wanted to somehow still furnish this space so that it didn't just feel like this long, skinny hallway. So I found this company called Scumble Goosey, which does these console tables, and I had it painted in preference red by Farrow & Ball, and I really love the pop of color that it creates and gives to the space. And then these cordless lamps, which are great. They give off the nicest light in the evening. I put these on the console table and a little stool below, somewhere you can put your shoes on. And then botanicals on either side of the mirror. I wanted the space to feel warm and inviting and kind of set the tone for the property. And it's a very tricky space because, as you can see, it's literally this wide. So it's kind of proof that you can furnish even the narrowest of hallways. Another trick that we did was the curtain by the door. So I wanted to create a sort of vestibule by the front door, which would hide, you know, sort of if we do have shoes and coats closer to the door. As you come down the stairs, it creates a really nice vignette and warmth to the room. I also feel like by dividing the hallway with the curtain, it makes it feel less long and narrow. And I went for a vertical ticking stripe, which kind of elongates and plays up the kind of narrowness of the hallway. I thought that was kind of fun, and I added a really fun fringe to it. In the evenings, in the winter, it's really good too, as we close it, and it kind of acts as a really good draft exclusion and privacy as the door is glazed. So yeah, that's sort of our hallway, and then we have a narrow staircase here, which goes up to the first floor. I did a sisal stair runner with a border, a charcoal gray border, and then antique brass stair rods. And I just wanted to add a little bit of glamour to the space, and I really like how the charcoal picks up the checkerboard marble floor. So I played up that black with that. And then we painted the entire ground floor, effectively, apart from the front room, pointing by Farrow & Ball, which is a kind of nice creamy white, which I do think helps make it feel a little bit more open and a little bit larger. The drawing room, as I call it, which sounds a bit grand for a room this size, is a typical Victorian sitting room in that it has the bay window to the front of the house. And and a fireplace with a chimney breast. So it's the typical kind of sitting room that you'd find in these Victorian houses. And I really wanted to play up the coziness of this space by grass clothing the walls. So I did a really nice textured grass cloth from Philip Jeffries on the walls, and it's called Tantalizing Teal, which I like the name of. It's kind of a nice jewel tone teal. And then I opted to paint the woodwork, like the cornice and the coving and the and around the windows, an archive Farrow and Ball color. And I really like how the teal ties in the walls. So it just feels like this kind of cozy space. And then I did curtains in an Ian Sanderson fabric with a Samuel & Sons silk brush fringe down the sides. And then I lined it in the inverse of the color. So the lining of the curtain is like a gold and the outside is like a teal. So I like those details. I always like lining curtains with a contrast fabric. The chair is like a vintage George Smith chair that I found online, and I had it reupholstered in a really great Vert Granet fabric, which I love. Skirted table, which I love to do. It always adds warmth to a space and fills a cozy corner. And then I did my springtime mantelpiece for Homeworthy. Doesn't normally look like this, but I love changing and being adventurous with the mantle. At Christmas, we went wild in the holidays with really fun greenery and pheasants. So it's fun to switch it up. This room is actually not very big, and we were able to fit a lot of furniture in it. And I think sometimes putting more furniture in smaller rooms is a good idea. It makes it feel bigger in a weird way. It's so odd, but it does. I think going dark on the walls and matching the woodwork to the wall helps it to feel cohesive and cozy and not break the wall up too much. So that helps. Also, by doing the curtains the same color as the wallpaper, I think that helps make it feel larger as well. And then we went bigger on the furniture. So the armchair is quite substantial. It's like a real classic roll arm, overstuffed armchair, and the sofa's a decent size. So I think going larger on the key pieces and then dotting around lots of little side tables, ceramic stools. I think you can get away with a lot of furniture in a small space. What I did do was on the wall opposite the window, we designed and had made a giant bobbin mirror in a really great sort of raspberry color. And I think that helps make the room feel larger as well, because it sort of reflects back the entire room again. So I think there's various ways of making a space feel bigger, but you don't necessarily need to go bright and light for a space to feel large. And then I have a leopard. I bought this French chair at a market, and I reupholstered it in a lovely leopard, velvet leopard by Osborne and Little, which I really like. A bobbin fender is always a good idea, I think. And funnily enough, when we bought the property, we didn't even know there was a fireplace here because there was furniture in the way. And so when we discovered this fireplace, we fell in love with it because of its original details. And then a collection of oils, which I've bought over the years, sits over the fireplace. I really love French oils and Swedish oils. And I like a collection of art. I think it's always cozy and nice. And there's Penny on the sofa. We did a pink sofa, which I know is quite daring, but I love the contrast of the pink with the teal grass cloth. And then it was all kind of centered around this Lee Joffa fabric that I used as cushions and as the skirt of the table, because it has all the colors in it. It pulls the pinks and the teals. And again, another Samuel & Sons fringe. I love fringes. I love fringing around curtains and cushions and upholstery. I think it's always a good idea. And then this cushion I did a little scalloped edge to, which I think is fun. A little frill is another way of doing it. You can do a frill, you could do a fringe, a contrast pipe, but either way, I think it's fun to edge your cushions and not just do them self-piped. The fireplace, which I have dressed for spring in the cherry blossoms. I opted to put wall lights above the fireplace, which I really like the low level lighting that it provides with Penny Morrison shades It adds so much warmth and coziness. We very rarely turn on the overhead light. We always have the lamps on. I think lamp light is always so much nicer. So this cushion is a bit of something silly, but it's from Furbish Studios, and it just says, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." And I just think it's silly and cute and fun, and I mean, maybe it's a bit kitsch, but I think it's kind of just adds something whimsical. I also collect Wedgwood. So in the bureau, I have a lot of Wedgwood collected. I have like the white urns that I've collected over time, and I like how clean it feels with just like all the white Wedgwood. And we do pull it often. Like I use it a lot for fresh flowers and things. So my home is very much a reflection of my taste, which is layered and colorful. And I always say it's like traditional, but with a fresh whimsy. I'm so sick of saying that. People always ask, "What's your aesthetic?" I'd say traditional. It has a traditional undertone, but it's a bit more youthful, a bit more playful. I mean, today I pulled out all the stops for Homeworthy, so we did a really springtime mantle behind me. I love being able to change it up and do different things. Like the bureau behind me, it drops down and we dress it as a bar sometimes. My partner will work there a lot. He pulls up a chair and sets up his laptop and works there. So I want it to be flexible and adaptable, but overall like cozy and warm, and push the boundaries a little bit. When you work in the industry, you very much, produce what the client brief is. And when it's your own house, you can be a little bit bolder and take a few more risks, So I had a lot of fun with color and texture, and yeah. And like I said before, being able to swap things around I think was really important. So, we might paint the bob and mirror blue tomorrow or green or, so I think it's always evolving and it's always changing. But yeah, I would say overall it's eclectic, whimsical, and layered. The English look is such an interesting thing because often it's inherited. So we go into with my job, I go into so many houses that are, passed down from generation to generation. And I think, but it's a very hard thing to do unless you've sort of collected over time. So to create that look all in one go can be difficult sometimes because it's like those rooms weren't decorated, in an hour. They took time. They took, years of inherited antiques or collecting. So I think to get that look, to get that kind of layered English eclectic look, I think you just need to be brave. And I would say shop vintage and antique more. So instead of, going and buying a whole bunch of new stuff, just take your time and collect and, buy a lovely old chair and maybe live with the fabric for a little while. Often English interiors aren't perfect either. It's a bit shabby. It's not perfectly polished all the time. So I'd say that would be my advice. If you're on a budget, I think go online, like buy from eBay. Buy a lovely old chair from eBay. I think that's so much nicer than going to a high street retailer. And if you're not on a budget, then I think mixing eras of furniture is really important as well. So, combine a lovely old Georgian chest with a bamboo side table, or, I love a glossy tray on an antique piece of furniture. So I think mixing eras is really important, and mixing fabrics, and not having it look like it all just came from a catalog, where you just bought it all, bought the showroom, bought the show suite. So yeah, I think that's the key, is collecting. Okay, so the kitchen is the space that we did the most structural work to, because it was actually very small before, and it was very closed in, and there was only one bathroom for the whole house, just there. And then none of this existed, basically. And so what we did was we opened it all up, including the staircase, to make it feel more open and brighter. And the real challenge in this space was that there is not that much wall space for cabinetry. So we were working with this existing chimney breast, and it's in a lovely bath stone, which would have been original to the house. And so I knew I wanted to work with this, but that meant, sacrificing this whole wall of storage, essentially. So I thought it'd be the perfect place for the range, which I put in, found one that fit perfectly inside. And then I've had these alcove units, we designed these alcove units and had them made, which sit either side of the range. And then that left me with very little counter space. So I tried to go as large as possible with the kitchen island, and I took it all the way to the end, and there's a lot of space on the other side. But what's good about this is it gives us loads of prep space and, loads of space to lay out everything. So our whole life is the island. And then we needed the island as well to have as much storage as possible. So I made sure to put the dishwasher, the bin, and then drawers all the way around. But in order for it not to feel too kind of heavy in the room, I wanted it to be more open at the bottom. So we incorporated, I sort of designed it with these columns. I saw an image in, I don't know, like Southern Living or something, of a kitchen island, and I really loved it. So I took it to paper and I sort of drew it, and I like this space that we've created at the bottom. So we can have display, baskets, various things across the bottom. And I change this out a lot. Sometimes I have baskets on display, sometimes I have, jars, lots of different things. And I think it's great because I change my mind a lot and I like to change things around. And so having an area for display for me is really important, and an area for collection. Annoyingly, again, with the wall space, there wasn't that much space here to have full-blown, full-depth counter or full-depth cupboard space. So I designed this plate rack, which I thought was quite cute. And we do use these, we pull them out, use them for dinner, and I think that's quite good. I definitely think the practicality of it is actually quite good, but I love what it provides. I love the color, and again, it allows an opportunity to change. Maybe one day I'll find the most amazing dinner service and I'll fill this with the dinner service that I buy at an auction. A giant bowl, for example. I just bought this the other day from a market, and it came from France, and it's huge. So it would have been a very, very big old dough bowl, which I think is great. And I love the green glaze in it. So we're always changing and accessorizing, and I wanted an opportunity to have space to do that. On the same line as that is this pot rack, which I had installed across the chimney breast. And I think it's great because, it shows a collection of antique French copper pots. At Christmas, I had a wreath, and I often have dried lavender or rosemary or different things. And I kind of, for a moment, got into collecting old Jell-O molds. And I love this fish one. So it just provides an opportunity to change things out. Honed Carrara worktops, I think, is always a good idea. And I like that they age. People always say, don't do Carrara, don't do marble, because, of course, it shows every mark. But I actually like that about it. I like that it gets a bit muddled and a bit messed up because, it's supposed to. It's supposed to show its wear and tear and age. And then in here, in the kitchen alcoves, these bifold doors are quite good because they conceal and hide a lot, and they look equally as nice open. So we opted to do preference red on the inside, which is this sort of purpley red, which I really like. I love the pop of color. I was really, interested in customizing this kitchen to be exactly what we wanted it to be. So I did a knife rack, or knife slots. The second drawer we did a really great spice rack. I mean, you can see I'm not very messy. This is real life, which is good. I'm not really, this is my real life. And then what else? And then over here, same thing with the cutlery. So it was a great opportunity to customize the kitchen to exactly what we wanted it to be. And again, here, we use this a lot. This is more kind of our coffee area and glassware. The checkerboard floor, which is a marble floor that I found at Mandarin Stone, which is a really good tile company here in the UK, I really love because I love how rustic it is. It's tumbled and it's a bit messed up. And I carried it from the front door through to the kitchen, which a lot of people were like, what are you doing? It's such a small house. It's going to feel too grand. But I love it because I love that it just gives this kind of sense of classicness, and also it's super practical and hard wearing because, you know, the more messed up it gets, the better. A bit like the worktop. I think the more messed up, the better. There was a wall here with a door when we bought the property, and obviously we've opened it all up. The storage under the stairs, people always say, where's the fridge? Where's the fridge? Our fridge is actually here, integrated under the stairs. And then we've done all of this kind of touch to open larder storage, pantry storage, which I think is great. We've done tongue and groove all the way across, which we've also done on the ceiling. So we carried that detail across the ceiling. And I like that you can't really tell that there's storage here and it doesn't feel too full of cabinetry, but equally is super practical. So I always knew I wanted to be an interior designer. I literally came out of the womb decorating. Like literally was obsessed with it. And yeah, it's really rare that that happens. Like, you know, the older I get, the more I realize that that is kind of such a blessing that I did always know what I wanted to do. It was such a lateral career. It was such a kind of lateral, you know, aspiration, I guess. I think like it's just something that I inherently love and that I was sort of good at, I guess, and what I really enjoyed. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to do interior design. I studied interior design in Toronto, so I went to university there. And then I worked for various design firms, as I said earlier. And I think that's important too. I think gaining various experience from, you know, various design firms is really helpful because you can take a little bit from each one that you work at. You can't just start and have your own company and go. I think you do need that kind of education in design as well. Because I think it's a bit like any art, like you have an inherent ability, but then you get better as you work in it. So, you know, the more projects you do, the more you fail, you realize something doesn't work. I think that's really, really valuable. Following on from the kitchen, there's this sort of sunken area, which is the living room, dining room area of the house. And actually, this is what I was saying earlier, this was so much work for them because the ceiling height is not very high here, but it was, if you can believe it, even lower. So they had to manually dig down in order to like get the height here to have a nice room. And so this is really where we like live in the house. We designed this joinery that goes up and over the sofa. And we did it the same color as the kitchen, the setting plaster pink with preference red on the inside. And then I did these nice library lights across the top. And we love sitting here. It's cozy and warm, especially with the lighting next to the sofa. It's great for reading in the evening and watching TV. I picked up this artwork in a market in Paris, and I had it framed in a bobbin frame, and I love the colors in it. And that was actually kind of the jumping off point for this room because I loved the teal and the kind of greens and the yellows. And then the Pierre Frey Pomme de Pin, I love this fabric, which has the kind of pinks, the reds, the yellows, and ties all the colors from the kitchen in. We then did a seagrass rug, and I had 2 French chairs that I found at market as well, upholstered in the pomme de pin with some bullion fringe around the bottom, and they're just fun and kind of silly. So annoyingly, this space is not that wide, and it needed to serve as both living room and dining room for the house. So originally I was gonna float the sofa in the middle of the room and have TV here, but it wouldn't have been enough space to also dine here. So what we did is we found a Samsung TV, which they do the frame, which is really, really good. So it looks like artwork, but it's actually a TV. So we sit here and watch television over the banquette, which is actually over the dining area. So this over here is the dining space. It opens to the garden, which we're having work done currently on. And I found these French chairs from a dealer in the UK, and I had them reupholstered in one of my favorite prints, like Sybil Colfax, which is a very like small little squiggly print, which I think is great. classic tulip table, which I think is a nice contrast with the chairs. So I love mixing eras like the French antique with the more modern table. Giant clamshells become a bit of my signature. I think they're so useful, filled with lemons. And then I designed this scallop banquette, which is great. Originally I was gonna put something fixed here, but I like that it's a piece of furniture that I can take with me. And then the TV, which looks like art, hopefully. Pretty buyable. People are always surprised. They're always like, is that a TV? Where's the TV? And I'm like, there, behind the art. Through this space, this is all new. So this part's an extension on the house that we basically built. And then we also were able to incorporate a utility room back here, which is very small. But I got another loo, so it's a WC 2-piece powder room. So we have the toilet, basin, and then I did the same pomme de pin wallpaper above tongue and groove. It's so small in here, but we also have the washer and dryer behind a skirt in there as well. What room is the most me? I think it's a tricky one because it's like most me at what time of day and what day that I designed it. You know what I mean? Like I love the room I'm sitting in right now because it's very cozy and very warm, but then I love it during certain times. Like it's very much an evening room to me. Like we use it a lot in the winter. We'll sit in here with like a glass of wine, the fire. But then day to day, we like live in the family room, the room off the kitchen, which is, you know, where the TV is, and my partner will be cooking or I'll be cooking and we'll be, you know, watching TV. So I think it depends. Like, it depends. I think I design often as well in how I'm feeling at that time. So for some reason I saw this room dark and I saw this room, you know, moody and cozy. I mean, it's really bright right now because the sun is shining. But so this is very me, but then, you know, my bedroom is very me as well. So I think it just depends. And me changes. Like I think in, you know, I'm constantly evolving. Like I said, I think in a few, you know, in a year or two, I'm sure I'll paint the bedroom a different color. So I think, you know, it's always changing. My favorite thing about my home is that it's cozy and safe and warm. I think that's the most important thing when designing houses is you can make any space beautiful. It doesn't need to be, you know, a massive Georgian manor house. I think for me, you know, it's a very average Victorian terraced house, but it's perfect for us. It's our little jewel box, I guess, in the city. And we love this city. I absolutely love living in Bath. I love how convenient it is, and I love how beautiful it is. We're constantly filled with inspiration just by living here because the architecture is so gorgeous and the surroundings are so nice. So, you know, and with my job, I'm so busy. I'm in and out of London all the time. I'm always, you know, all around the UK and France and various places. So it's such a nice home to come home to. It's like manageable, it's perfect, it's, you know, it's cute. That's I guess my answer. It's a difficult one. I think you can make any place feel like home. Follow me upstairs to see the bedrooms and the rest of the house. So we actually created this room. It used to be a larger bedroom and we put this wall up to incorporate a bathroom up here. And again, similar to the drawing room, we went dark in the color. So this is Farrow and Ball Stone Blue, which is a great strong blue, which I love. Then we did sewn scrolling fern on the bed, cute little matching bedside light and table lamp. And yeah, it's a cute little guest bedroom. It's perfect for my little nephews when they come and visit. And everybody loves this little room. It's quite cute. Let me show you my bedroom next. Welcome to my bedroom. We designed these wardrobes with fabric inside to add warmth, and you know, we needed the storage, so I filled the whole wall with wardrobes, but I didn't want it to feel like you were sleeping in a dressing room. So I felt like by adding these fabric panels, it sort of, again, gave it more visual interest and made it more bedroomy and soft. And then I opted to paint the entire room Farrow and Ball red earth, which is such a great sort of terracotta color, which is not a kind of typical choice for a bedroom, I think. But I liked it because basically the kind of fabric that I was inspired by was the Schumacher tiger palm fabric, which I love and I still love to this day. We use it in so many projects. And I think it's so fun because it's like folky, but it's, you know, block printy and it has a coolness to it. So basically it had these kind of colors in it. So I pulled the terracotta out of that, and then I did a similar tone on this fabric, which is by GP&J Baker. And I love it as the lining of the half tester and on the inside of the wardrobes. We created this sort of half tester, I guess, or bed canopy over the bed to add softness and to give it more visual interest. Originally, when we bought the house, there was wardrobes on that wall there, and we tore them out and we basically widened the chimney breast in order to accommodate the king-size bed. So we had the builder build this out so that I could fit the bed here. And then I made sure I could fit these nice Gustavian chests of drawers either side in the kind of alcoves. Wavy mirrors, which they've annoyingly discontinued because they're such good mirrors. Thank God I have a pair of them. I think a pair of mirrors either side of a bed is always a good idea. And then these like large rattan lamps. I think a big lamp is always good next to a bed. I wish I had done wall lights. I think reading lights is always nice next to a bed, but it was very challenging because the bed is the width of the chimney breast. So it was tricky, and I wanted to be able to fit these chests. And then I just did one long cushion on the bed with a really cute little frill, which I thought was really fun rather than multiple cushions. It's just a bit easier to deal with, and I like the cleanness of it. And then the bed end chest, which is rattan. It's called the Calabash chest from Oka, which is a really good company here. We fit our life in here. We have all the linens, the towels, everything in this chest. So thank God for the chest. Then I found this little antique Napoleon chair, a little French chair at a market, and I had it reupholstered in the tiger palm with a little gathered skirt. And then another little cushion. Again, collection of oils that I've collected over time. So one's mid-century, and one is a little bit older than that. And I like them together. I like putting art that you wouldn't think of together. It's more collected and layered. The curtains are in a really lovely fabric by Jane Churchill, and it's this kind of, I don't know, it's kind of African, I guess. I really like the ethnicness of it and the vibe. And then I fringed down the leading edge. I think fringing curtains is always a really good idea. I like having some sort of edge detail to it. It just elevates it. And then another seagrass rug, which I think is always nice texture to a room. So it's this kind of seagrass matting, which, you know, what's good about it is it's not very precious. It's very robust. So you can just sort of do whatever to it. With a dog and a busy life, it's just nice to have the kind of durable seagrass underfoot. So let me show you the loft next. I think you're gonna really love it. So another big part of the renovation was creating this loft space in the house. And I didn't want to take up too much space from the bedroom below, so we had to do this sort of really U-shaped staircase, which is quite narrow, but I think it was worth it because it allowed us to not compromise the rooms below. This is a really good guest bedroom, and I actually love how cozy it is up here and how cool it feels. We basically had designed this headboard, again with a really great fringe around the sides, and it's in a Fermoy stripe, and I did a Samuel & Sons fringe around it. Wall lights here work really well, a bit like the opposite of my bedroom where the bed is actually in a recess with this one. We then did curtains on the Velux windows, which I think work really well because it's a good solution for a Velux window rather than the typical blinds. It adds softness and interest. This Pierre Frey fabric is one of my favorites. which we then used as curtains, cushion, and a little settee at the end of the bed. Funnily enough, probably one of the most expensive things in the whole house is this little settee, which is so random because it's up at the top in the loft. But I did a Samuel & Sons fringe around the bottom of this little sofa, and the fabric and then the actual sofa itself came to a lot of money, but I think it was worth it because it's very cute. And I love the blues and the raspberries and the colors that it has in it. What we did do here is we built these bookshelves in order to accommodate the books, but also allow for storage. So I did these sort of jib storage doors here so that we can, you know, put Christmas decorations, San Pellegrino, extra supplies. It's just a really handy little storage space. And I like that you can't really see it. It feels concealed. And we did that on both sides of the eaves. We created these beams as well. We added these timber beams to add character. So we did one here, there, and on the other side. And yeah, overall, it's just a cute little guest bedroom. Just gotta mind your head. I think home for me is a space that feels reflective of me, I guess, and it's kind of my refuge. I love being surrounded by things I've collected and being, you know, surrounded by things that have memories associated with them. So, you know, I always think of when I see items that I've collected or furnishings or artwork even, I associate the memories of when I purchased it. So yeah, I think that's what home is. Home isn't just thrown together and, you know, bought from a catalog, like I said earlier. Home is definitely a place that is filled with things that are very personal, which is what I love about my job. I love being able to design people's houses that are a reflection of them. And that's why every project's different and every brief is different, because at the end of the day, it comes down to the person and the client. So yeah, I think that's how I would define it, I guess.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Sophie. This is my home in Kent. I can't wait to show you around. Come in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi, I'm Sophie Rowell. I'm an interior designer. Today we're at my home in Folkestone, which is on the Kent coast. I live here with my son, Kid, and with Tippy. My home is a Grade 2 listed Georgian home, very tall and skinny. So it's set over 4 floors, lots of stairs. And when I bought it 7 years ago, it was a complete wreck. It needed a new roof. Every wall, floor and ceiling has either been replaced or restored. So it was a massive project. So we are on an area of the old town in Folkestone called the Bale, which is very pretty. All the houses are candy coloured and it's super quiet. But they were the old captain's cottages, because from every window you can see the sea. So we're above and we're looking down. So it's a really lovely little community up here. When we saw the house, it's funny, all the houses that I've ever bought, or apartments, and there's been a few, they've always been the only one I've ever seen. It was the only one we saw, and I'm very lucky that every time it's all just worked out. Welcome to the entrance of the house. It's very tall and skinny, so there's not much room here, but I just have this little bamboo table where we just throw our keys and stuff when we come in. This is my favourite paint colour ever. It's called Caddy by Paint and Paper Library. And I'm yet to use it in a project, which I'm dying to do because it's my favourite colour. So that wraps all the way up the house. And the lighting is from Pale Fire.
these little lights, which is an incredible company here in the UK. Definitely check them out. And because we completely gutted the house, we at times went back to the original brickwork before we built back up the walls. So along the whole left side of the house from top to bottom, I left it the original brickwork. So that's actually next door's right there. So yeah, you'll see as we go up the house, all this side is all brickwork, and then we plastered and painted everything on the other side. So I think what did put most people off this house, which was lucky for me, was it did need an enormous amount of work, and mainly the roof needed replacing, which is no small job. So I think it put a lot of other people off, where for me that was quite exciting. And then it was all the walls were what we have in the UK, it's called wood chip. So it's this very old-fashioned wallpaper that they probably put up in kind of the 60s and 70s, but you know when you take that off, it's all just going to crumble, which is exactly what happened. So it was a complete gut job, and it was me and two guys, and we worked very, very hard, and we blitzed it in a remarkable amount of time. We did it all in about 18 weeks. So as you can see, it's very narrow, and there was actually a door here into the kitchen space, what's now the kitchen, but we've opened that up so that you can kind of just swing round and enter the kitchen and this little seating area that I have. So this area actually used to be our dining space. So I had a big Swedish bench and a big table here for entertaining. But as I've lived here for longer and my sons got older, I decided I wanted another seating area in the house that I could come to and relax, which wasn't the sitting room, which my son often takes over. So I moved the dining table into the kitchen, which we'll get to, and then created this much more soft seating space. I think as well, when people come round, everyone always gravitates to the kitchen, and it's not necessarily the most comfortable space. So this kind of bridges that gap between hanging out while someone's cooking, but also being comfortable and still very social. We laid this parquet flooring, which actually came from an old post office, also in Kent. So that's nice. It stayed in its, hasn't gone far. I don't know if you can see around here, I have so many samples in the studio, and a lot of them are tile samples. So I ended up tiling this hearth in all multicoloured Zellinge tiles, and they were just all leftovers from samples of colours that I've either used on a project or thought about using on a project, and then painted this lilac colour so it sits. You'll see how that speaks to the kitchen in a bit. This houses, I mean, I've had this cabinet forever, this French corner cabinet, and it houses all my glassware. I'm a bit obsessed with glasses, drinking glasses, so that I'm not even going to open it because it's absolutely full of glasses. I mean, I couldn't even use them all if I tried. This little bespoke sofa was made by my guy, especially for this space, in this amazing chocolate linen from Rose Uniac. No one knows, but it's got little covered legs, which no one will ever see except me, but I know they're there. And then I've kind of used an array of fabrics, gingham on the windows and stripe in the cushions. And this old armchair was ready for the dump, but we brought that back to life. And this fabric, I found 3 pieces of it in an antique fair, and it was just enough by the skin of its teeth for the chair and the poof. And I love it. It's the right side of chintz. It's got amazing colours in it. There's the yellow that I'm always drawn to, and purple and blues and greens. And I don't know, I just think it just works. So yeah, Tippy's claimed that little poof for herself. So that's her little spot when she comes in. She's quite cute. And then the rugs, I always use these in my projects. I just love them. When they first arrive, they have this amazing smell, which unfortunately dissipates, but they're made by a lovely lady, Jess, who's also on the coast actually. She's a bit further down the coast. She's called Seagrass Story, and she makes them all to measure, and I absolutely love them. They're a neutral, but they add texture, and yeah, you just can't go wrong with them. The nook came about because I took this much away on this side, so that as soon as you enter the house, you can throw your coat behind a curtain. So that behind there is all coats accessed by the door, which left space for us to have these this little nook of shelves, which is not very well organised, if I'm honest. It's just got cookbooks and magazines on. I could curate it much nicer, I'm sure, but yeah, it's amazing how much space they take up. Month after month, they just accumulate, and I never want to get rid of them for some reason. So yeah, that stack is growing. I didn't actually want to move out of London. We were always in Hackney, which I loved. And I actually came here kicking and screaming. I didn't want to come. And I actually hated it at first. It took a long while to adapt, but it's been quite a while now. But I wouldn't change it for the world. I love it here. I love living by the sea. There's something really special about being by the ocean. And I think it's really positive for my son to be here. So I wouldn't change it for the world, but it wasn't a, oh yeah, let's do this decision. It just almost just happened. And then I was like, oh my God, what have I done? But now I love it. There's a lot of fabrics throughout the house, some vintage, some new, that the house wouldn't be what it is without those fabrics. And I think fabric, you see that in my work as well, fabric plays a huge role in the rooms that we design. So I think you'll see as this goes on, like pockets of fabrics and textures that they bring and pattern that really make the room. From here we just swing, pivot round, and we're in the kitchen. It's all the same on the ground floor. And traditionally in these houses, the kitchen would have been in the basement. But as I said, the kitchens feel like the real hub of the home. So it made sense to me that you walk in and you're in that space. And when that seating area was the dining room, I actually had an island here originally when we did the kitchen first time round, which in hindsight was a mistake. I'm anti-island. I'm an anti-island person. So we got rid of the island, which gave us so much more space. So now the table's in the kitchen and I've got this whole seating area, and for just to miss one quite small island. So it was definitely the right decision. And then we kept all the IKEA carcasses, and I had my carpenter make me new doors. So it's it's called London Brown by a UK paint company, Mylands London. But when the light hits it, it's kind of aubergine. It's an incredible colour. It lightens, when the sun hits it, it lightens up quite dramatically. And then I paired it with this lilac, which I adore, which is this kind of, so everything that was in the island now just sits in here. And these doors kind of just push in. And so it just hides the soda stream and the milk frother and the toaster and all the things you don't want to see. So this is also Mylands. This is early lavender, I think it's called. And the wall colour is Lots Road, which I really love because it's super creamy and it's like ice cream. It looks good enough to eat. I like the idea in spaces, same with bathrooms, and the same applies with kitchens, where you kind of address it like any other home. So it has to function, any other space in the home. So it has to function, but it can also, you know, you can have a lamp on the counter, you can hang artwork. You'll see in my bathroom I've done the same. So I think it just adds, it just makes it less, it makes it more cozy, I think. This plate on the wall is an artist that I love called Claudia Rankin. I love her work. And again, you'll keep seeing yellow everywhere. So there's something about yellow that I'm really, really drawn to. And this is my favourite. I think this is probably my favourite lighting in the house. And I actually sourced one for a client, and the dealer had two. So I bought one for myself. And I found these little rattan shades in America, which go perfectly. As part of the original IKEA kitchen, we just had a freestanding fridge here because it was perfect in this little alcove. So with my carpenter, I designed this cupboard to wrap around the original fridge, which I based off a Swedish armoire that I'd seen. These are Beata Herman handles. And yeah, I love it. I think it's really striking in the room, and it's nice. It connects the two spaces because obviously you wouldn't know it was a fridge. It doesn't even look like a kitchen cupboard. So it kind of connects the two spaces quite well, I think. And the colour, again, is just really special. So these shell lights, I also have them in my bathroom, and believe it or not, a friend found them in a French kind of brocante, and they were €3 each, which is remarkable. So yeah, we have two in the kitchen, and you'll see there's two in the bathroom as well. I love them. That was a gift actually from the artist, and she does this range of whatever it is, please. So she asked me what mine would be. And interestingly, I said to my partner, I said, oh, I've been very generously asked if I wanted a piece of her artwork, but I can't think of anything. And he said, what do you mean you can't think of anything? It's got to be eclairs, because I'm obsessed with eclairs and eat them far too often. As the renovation went on, because all the walls were replaced, they were then freshly plastered. So this pink colour was everywhere throughout the house at some point. And with plaster, there's kind of, as it's being done, it's very dark. And then as the days go on, it slowly dries and it turns into this beautiful colour. So when it came to this room, the builders thought I was mad, but I was like, let's not do anything to it. Let's just seal the walls, because I enjoyed, because I saw it so much and every day. There was a part of me that didn't want to lose this feeling of the raw plaster. So in this room, we just sealed the walls and left it as it is. The vibe in here, it's very eclectic. Although the walls are clearly pink, it is a colour and a texture that kind of sits back in the room and lets everything else kind of come into its own. So there's pops of yellow in here, there's a lot of green, there's always stripes wherever we go. So I think it's a real mix of, any good room should evolve over time. So, you know, you see something and you add it, and over time the room kind of becomes its own kind of thing. On the next floor we've got the sitting room and the bathroom. A lovely artist, Hattie Evis, came for the day, 2 days actually, and she painted this beautiful kind of trim which goes up to the next floor as well. It's really unusual to have a window that runs up through the floors. So I wanted to really highlight that, and because we're by the sea, she drew inspiration with seashells, and it's just a really lovely, unique touch to the house that I love. Okay, and then to the sitting room. So in here we kept the plastered walls, which, as I mentioned, my builder thought I was mad. And because it was an afterthought, it really does show all the marks and all the little mistakes, and it's not perfect, which is what I love about it. And this colour is super warming and enveloping and just very relaxing. So I tried to find a paint that would sit well with it on the woodwork, but none of them work quite so well. So I actually made this colour up myself for all the woodwork, so that the whole room really just blends into one another. And it's interesting, this is the one room that I could quite easily redecorate, but the thought of losing the plaster every time I think, oh, I could wallpaper it, or oh, it could be blue, every time I think I'll never get the plaster back if we paint it or wallpaper it. So I never have. I don't think I will either. This sofa I had made. I actually had one made for a client, and it was so incredibly comfortable and delicious that I had my guy make me one. So here it is, and I love it because it shows the ins and outs of upholstery, which I just think is such an amazing craft. And because it's half exposed in areas and you see all the pins and all the stitching, it's a real celebration of that craft. And then I covered it in Robert Kime ticking, which is such a great fabric. Comes in 5 colourways, I think. And I actually use it a lot in projects because it's a great fabric. Behind here is Queen Victoria, which this piece is remarkable. So it's actually writing, and it's her life story, but in her portrait. So if you look closely later, it is incredible. And it says it contains 173,000 words, and I think it says somewhere how long it took them, but it took them forever. So it's an incredible, I just love it. I've had that for years and years and years and years. This is quite a recent piece, which is actually an original 80s Conran piece, which I love. I think it sits really well here. And it's interesting, so many people have ventured in doing this type of furniture now, but I don't know, this original Conran is just perfect to me. So that's that, and these I found in an antique fair years ago, so I think they frame the wall and everything really nicely. This amazing vase was a gift actually a couple of Christmases ago from my partner David. which obviously sits perfectly. I mean, even the tones are exactly the same. And every Christmas I seem to do some kind of hydrangea scenario, whether it's on the mantle or in the Christmas tree, and then I just let them dry out. So you'll see them dotted everywhere. They're accumulation of Christmas hydrangeas that have just dried out, again, to the perfect colour. It's like I did it on purpose, but I didn't. This pooth is from Anthropology, which is probably one of the few items that either isn't antique or hasn't been made by hand. It's one of the only few new pieces I have. And I love it because it's absolutely huge. It's like over 3 metres long and over 1.5 metres wide. So it takes up the whole room, but I love that. And we've got our TV on an easel. So working with clients all the time, the TV is always the bane of everyone's life because it's this big black box that's ugly. And so there's loads of solutions to hide your telly, but here we've just gone a bit kitsch with it and put it on an easel, and that works for us. So this is again from Beata Herrmann, one of her trays, which is really handy for your drinks and things on the poof. This is by an artist who I adore called Amy Douglas. She's actually based in Brighton. I'm obviously drawn to people that also live by the sea. But all of my girlfriends clubbed together for my big birthday this year and got me this piece, which is called Pure Folly. And I absolutely adore it. She buys antique pottery, ceramics, and then breaks them and then puts them back together again with gold. So that's very, very dear to me. I love it. And this I love, this Italian jug. I always have fresh flowers in the house, always. And I'm always collecting lamps as well. This is just an old lamp. You can see how old it is by the old switch. None of the fireplaces work, which was a decision when I did the house up, which I now regret. So we decided not to have any working fireplaces. My thinking being, I didn't want the mess and the dust that it causes. But obviously now I'm a little more relaxed in the house. It would be lovely to have an open fire in here, but none of the fireplaces work. But we did put in this marble fireplace. This wasn't here, and all these French tiles, they weren't here. So yeah, I think that's one of my regrets in the renovation, not making the fireplaces all work. That's from an antique fair. It's incredible, this piece. Because again, it's got all the colours and it's a little bit, it's gone, and it shows a story. I think that's what I love about these old things. They've all had a life prior to coming into my life. And the one thing I love about this room the most are these 80s inspired blinds. This is silk from Helen Blanche, but I love these. Again, more stripes. I love a stripe. In the sitting room, we have our lights mostly from lamps, but the overhead, which does give off this really lovely soft glow, it's a little moonlight from Beata Herrmann, which gives off a really lovely glow through the linen. I found this print and then I found the frame both separately at antique fairs, and then put those together. I think they kind of marry together really lovely. This is a stunning 18th century plate from Italy, which my son broke with his football. That's what happens when you live with a football fan, a 12-year-old football fan. But she's still there and she's still lovely. And then this was a gift, which I love, which I just think it sits beautifully in this room. And again, this is what's amazing about this. It's just anything can kind of sit with it and it just all works. Yeah, I think antiques do give a space soul and character. They bring an element that, yeah, new things they just can't. And I think you know there's a fine line between too much new and there's also a fine line with too much antique. So yeah, I do think though they instantly add story and a sense of uniqueness to a space. So I actually had a 24-year career in fashion as a stylist and art director, which was amazing and I loved it. But then there was life changes and my son was getting older, and the fashion industry, it's certainly not 9 to 5. So it was becoming increasingly difficult to kind of be there for my son and, you know, be on the job fully. And I got to a time in my kind of early to mid 40s where I wanted to change. So I actually I opened a homeware store, which is how this kind of, I guess that was the beginning of the journey without me really knowing it. And then that very quickly evolved into the interiors where we are now. Coat to Folk is an interior design company. We're based here, but we work all over the UK. We also work all over America, which is super exciting. We've currently got projects in Massachusetts and Brooklyn and Pennsylvania. We have a very organic approach. It's a very collaborative process with the client, which I really enjoy, bringing them on a journey to find their perfect interior. We're very much, we're not a clear out, start again approach. I love the idea of legacy, and if there's a grandpa's old armchair that can be saved and recovered, then we will. So yeah, it's about using the client's current items to build their perfect home. So also on this floor we have our main bathroom, so I'll show you that next. Here in the bathroom, you're welcome to come and see. We have the same lights as we had in the kitchen. We have a walk-in shower, and I always, again, talking about fabrics again, but I always use just normal fabrics and then put a plastic curtain on the inside. So you can use any fabric you want for your shower curtain. Little bath, our little curtains. This actually was sourced from a nunnery in France, this fabric, which I just love because it's all been patched up over the years. So this is perfect storage for a bathroom. You can get everything in here out of sight. And then I keep all my towels in that old lady trolley basket, which is handy. And like the kitchen, I've hung art pieces on the wall, on the tiles, just to add softness and make this space not just a bathroom. So it's another space where you feel connected and relaxed. In this house, you can never have too much toilet paper. So my toilet paper is literally on a pedestal. So that mirror used to be above the fireplace, actually, in the sitting room. And then I found that 60s kind of convex one that you'll see in there. So I transported it into here, and yeah, I think it works. She's actually happier in here, I think. In America, you don't have as many rules as we do here with electrics and bathrooms. You're really lucky, you can do what you like. But I think I've just got away with this one. So yeah, I think a low hanging, again, lighting that's not necessarily bathroom lighting always helps to soften the space. And because it's hanging so low, it's really nice just to have that one on while you're having a bath, so it's much more relaxed rather than all of the lighting on. So if your legs can take it, we'll go up another floor, up to the 4th floor where my bedroom and my son's bedroom is. So this is the top of the house, and as you can see, as I mentioned, the brickwork is all the way up on that side of the house still. We've got my favourite paint colour on the walls and the ceiling. This French antique light, which gives off a lovely soft glow for the evening. My pirate man that I found. And as you can see, the window that kind of runs up the back of the house, which is really unique. And how the artist has just kind of finished off that artwork at the top. I just love it. So this chest is actually in the hallway, but this has my overflow of clothes, anything folded. And it's just a nice little spot to have all your trinkets and things. There's another one of these paintings downstairs. Again, Hungarian, which I had framed in antique frames, which again has those colours coming through. So this lamp is, I think this is like an old pot that someone has very cleverly converted into a lamp. These pots, I've got a couple of these pots that I picked up in Italy, and then that's me and my son a few years ago. And this pot I found in a really lovely town called Rye, which if you're in the UK you must visit. It's just a place to make a nice little vignette to walk past every day. So straight on is the bedroom, my bedroom. So this is my room, and when I did the renovation I took the ceiling away. Because we were putting a new roof on the house, it all had to come off anyway. So I decided to lose some loft storage area in order for my room to be opened up, which has made a huge difference to this room. If I look back at pictures of how it used to be, it felt much smaller and quite oppressive. And from the bed you get sea views out. So it's a really airy, lovely room. It's this room I've used Atelier Ellis paints, which is another UK company. Breathable paints, all natural. So this is warm white, they call this. And the floor is pottery blue. And my wardrobe is called, this brown is called Betty. And I think all of those are really nice together in this room. It's my sanctuary up here, so it's super calm, super relaxing, and it's probably my favourite room of the house. This is actually a really old bed from Loaf, a UK company, which I've had for years and years and years. So I've just changed the mattress over years, and then I've added this. This is antique fabric that I picked up in an antique fair. I just really loved the blue and I don't know if they're pineapples, but they look a bit like pineapples. And then this quilt, again, picked it up in an antique fair, but I love the pop of red in here. I think it's funny, a client nearly took this and then she decided not to, and I'm really glad she didn't, because I wouldn't part with it now. My bedside is from Chelsea Textiles, and I recommend anyone having a bedside with a drawer. You can hide everything you need to hide. I think my modest wardrobe, for someone that worked in fashion for 24 years, I think I'm doing quite well getting everything in there. Some things spill off the end, but yeah. So the fireplace from downstairs obviously runs all the way up, which this was all, everything was kind of boarded out, so there was every room was just a square. The fireplaces weren't exposed and the alcoves weren't exposed, so that gave some nice shape and depth to the room, exposing that. And again, having that brickwork for just another texture in the room. And these Malawi chairs, I love these chairs. I often use these in projects as well. They're amazingly comfortable, actually, with, again, vintage fabrics on the cushions. My blinds are made from French linen sheets, so they're really lovely, and I don't mind the light coming in. I quite like waking up to daylight rather than they're not blackout. So, and then again you'll see pops of yellow everywhere, so I'm definitely drawn to that colour. But this I picked up, there used to be a shop in Deal called Lost and Found. Was it called Lost and Found? And it was run by two guys, and they had such an amazing eye. Unfortunately, they've closed now, but I got that from them a few years ago. I do love decorating my own home. I'm always changing stuff. I'm always moving things. So everything, and I think this comes through my work as well, I don't like permanency. So everything, although it has its place, it could also always have another place, and it can always move. So I do like decorating my own home. The only thing I would say is I find it much harder to make decisions. I'm super decisive at work and when I'm working with clients, but for myself, it takes a lot longer for me to get to the decision. For some reason, it's very annoying. I think everyone has their sense of their own style. I think as you get older, it's much easier to kind of lean into that. But everyone will have their favourite designer or their favourite kind of look, whether that's, the person that only wears black or only wears white. I think it's just a confidence thing, and that just grows over time. And just leaning into what you love, and I guess not really caring what anyone else thinks. That's the key. This is my son's room, Kid. He's opted for a bigger bed over floor space, and he wanted a blue room, which is a colour at that point I'd not worked with before, and I didn't know how to make it work with the rest of the house. But I paired it with this kind of toffee colour on all the woodwork, which I feel kind of brings it back to my house. But he also gets what he wants. This is his wardrobe, which is an old locker that I found, which is we've just put some shelves in and some hanging rails, which he, funnily enough, hates. But anyway, it does the job. And yeah, he gets a lovely view of the hills on his side of the house. And this blind, it's pretty noisy, but this is made from Hungarian linen that comes, it's quite narrow, and it comes on rolls and rolls. So my amazing lady, Julie, made this beautiful blind for him, which is blackout so that he sleeps. I found that at a car boot sale, actually. And it's fabric, it's just been stretched over a frame, but I thought all the colours sit with his woodwork colours. Yeah, I like There's two tigers in the house. There's this one and then there's the plate in the kitchen. So actually I bought this rug off a friend on Instagram. She was doing a clear out and she was getting rid of it, but it was way before I decorated my son's room. And then it was one of those serendipitous moments where you kind of think, oh, I've got a rug somewhere, and rolled it out, and there's the blue in there and the caramel colours and the yellow again. So all the colours kind of worked in this room, so it was perfect. So this is a Swedish bench, which is actually the perfect size for him to slot in there for his drink in the night, and he has his computer on there sometimes. So yeah, this is Swedish, yeah, antique again. The thing I love most about this home is actually how it makes me feel. It's very calming and I feel very safe here and calm and relaxed, and I think that's super important. I think your environment really affects how you feel day to day, and I just love my home. It's super. I'm a real homebody, and it's super important to me. So that feeling of that gives me, that's the most important thing. The word home for me means to feel safe and comfortable and calm and relaxed.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Natalie. Welcome to my home in West London. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hi, I'm Natalie Tredgett. I'm an interior designer, and you are in my home in West London. We have been in this home for about 7 years. We ended up in this particular area because we love tennis and we love being by the river. Growing up in Canada, nature is really important to us, and living in such an amazing city like London, we wanted our weekends to feel a little bit like the English countryside. One of the things that we love so much about this area is that we're right next to a beautiful palace called Fulham Palace, and there are these gorgeous gardens, so you can almost feel like you're living in a Georgian fantasy world. These large windows, these huge sash windows open from the bottom, and you can literally walk out and see an extraordinary trees and beautiful flowers and bees that are kept. It's sort of a little oasis in West London. When we saw this house, one of the things that I loved so much about it was that where the kitchen was situated. It was right in the middle. Victorian townhouses tend to have a traditional layout. You have a room in the front, a little room in the middle that are attached by a fireplace, and then there's a large expanse in the back. And generally what people do is that they knock out the entire back and put a huge kitchen. And so therefore you're really only living in 3 spaces. But this house was somewhat different because they use this middle room that kind of gathers rubbish, or a coat here, or a dog bed there, or maybe a desk that you sometimes work at, and you're using it for much better space, your kitchen, which is in the heart of your home. Welcome to my entrance. This entrance really sets the tone for the house. I've chosen to use the color pink because pink is one of my favorite colors. It's not a color often used in an entrance, and so I think that a lot of people who come in will know exactly what to expect. Something different, unusual, playful, and fun. In London entrances, especially in Victorian townhouses, we don't have a lot of space. And often in entrances, we'd like to have a surface where we can use to put down keys and the post. I went shopping at a beautiful antique light shop and I saw this uplighter, and I thought that the shape and the size would be perfect for this entrance, which is not that wide. But what's so special about it is that it is a light and works as a night light for those who come in a little bit later and want to have a soft light as they come in. I love to play with antiques, with original moldings, with original architecture, but I like to twist them a little bit, try and think about them in a more contemporary way. In this entrance, because I wanted to set the tone of fun, I used a traditional Victorian cornice. It's called flower and post. And what it does is that it's a beautiful sort of ornate cornice, and at every little region you put a flower and then a post. And I learned from my wonderful Nicholas Haslam, who I used to work for, this fun little trick where you take a tennis ball, you cut it in half, you fill it with plaster, and you position it in the same place that you would put a flower and a post. And what it does is that it brings a contemporary twist and a playfulness in the entrance, but keeps its Victoriana. And then with the chandelier, I wanted to bring a lot more of those particular shapes, which is why I went with a vintage 1960s light fixture. I like mixing old and new because the tension between the two brings a lot of interest. It's fun, it's playful, and I love circular shapes. Traditionally in Victorian townhouses, they tend to have a long corridor. And what I did is I added these tiny little walls, which I refer to as nib walls, because I wanted to decorate this area very differently than this area. And with this particular nib wall, because it creates a little return, it allows you to create this space and paint it one color, because on the opposite side, you have a different color. So it shortens a very long space, and then it allows you to play with color and decoration and create a zone to know that this is the entrance and this is the corridor leading to the house. Here on the right, I wanted also to use a really beautiful rug up the stairs. This gets a lot of traffic in most houses, this particular stretch. So doing something busy is practical. And what I did is that I sourced a beautiful Swedish vintage rug in France, and I cut it in half and laid it on my stairs. I love the pattern, I love the color. The busyness is just enough to hide all those dirty paws, dirty feet, and constant traffic. And it also brings a visual interest to the space as you walk in, because it tends to be quite structural, almost like a sculpture, that I didn't want to ignore. So now we're going to go to the left and into our family room. Now we're in our family room. This is the first room off the entrance. It tends to be almost a waiting room during the day. We come in, we dump our things, our shopping comes here, the coats slung over the furniture. But at night, this is where this room comes alive. It is at the front of the house, which is north facing. I decided to paint it this beautiful dark teal hue because I wanted to feel cozy at night. The fireplace comes on, and we tend to enjoy spending the evening in here. But during the day, it acts as a busy zone for waiting, grabbing, and going. Above the fireplace is a beautiful piece of work from one of my favorite artists and dear friends, Selena Beaudry. These are paper piles. She creates these beautiful compositions where she paints several pieces of paper, and then she lays the colors by building these paper piles, and she's elevated it by putting it in a Perspex box. I love the fact that this particular piece complements my walls. Often with art, it's tempting to paint your walls white because you want your artwork to stand out. But sometimes it's great to consider a darker color because it makes the art more elevated. So we use the fireplace at night, and we love it in the winter because it adds a lot of warmth to the particular space. We sit here and have a nightcap after a dinner party, or the two of us, my husband and I, and sometimes with the kids, we hang out here. It's not a big space. It's a place where literally you can put your feet up on the coffee table because it's a soft piece of fabric. And we love just hanging out and chatting and just taking a deep breath after a long day. The fact that the ceiling is painted the same color as the walls allows some drama into the room. I think that it lowers the ceiling ever so slightly, which sometimes we don't want to do, but in a night cozy room, we definitely want to. And we love to close the doors to the kitchen. These are the only two doors we have in the entire house, and it just shuts the entire house down, and we just remain here in a little cozy nook. So these chest of drawers hide a lot of sins. We fill it with papers, extra pencils for my children's school run. We fill them with candles and a few other fancy plates and things that don't fit in the cupboards. But I think that they anchor the fireplace beautifully. They're vintage, they're from the 60s, and they've been recently ebonized to give it a bit of a glossy look. It matches the walls because I've given a very glossy, lacquered look to the walls. I wanted this room to shine a little bit because it is slightly dark, but we love it because during the day you don't get the same feeling as you do at night. The lamps were found at an antique shop here in London. They were original vases from India, and I've elevated them by dressing them with a black base and these quite dramatic shades. There are certain rules about shades that they shouldn't be bigger than 2.5 times the width or 2.5 times the size of a lamp base. But I sometimes like to play a little bit with the size of the shades. I think lamps are sculptural. I think they should be treated as such. They are like jewelry to the room, and they're so incredibly additive. And yellow is one of my favorite colors, this particular tone. And as I stare at them, I get to know them more and more over time. There's such beautiful detail. And this space here could be this little space for the base, to me, is very, very modern. And I'd like to find a way to use those shapes and replicate that in other ways. When my husband and I were first married, it was traditional for couples to develop a registry and get all sorts of plates and glasses and silverware, which we did, and I love them very much. But one of the things I really wanted were these beautiful green chargers from Richard Ginori. And instead of hiding them away and only bringing them out on those special occasions, I've hung them on the wall as art. I just love to look at them. And I think that this circular shape is very modern and unexpected. So these chairs are 1980 Milo Bond chairs. They're from the US, but I bought them here in London from a dealer. I love the way that they swivel. It's incredibly practical to have tidy little chairs. And because of their shape, their rounded back, they're incredibly comfortable. I wanted to upholster them in a pattern because I think that the room is quite sobering in terms of its texture. And pattern allows you to bring in that extra texture. And this one in particular has a touch of yellow in that highlights the piece of work above the fireplace and the lamps. So I wanted to bring in something quite subtle, but just highlight it ever so slightly with the accent color yellow. If you look at the rug is originally from Pakistan. It uses this beautiful wool. It has a very Moroccan feel for it. But what drew me to this particular carpet, this rug, was the beautiful tones and the shades. I think some of this is completely unexpected. Color patterns that I wouldn't naturally pick, But this is exactly what I wanted, because with all this shiny smoothness that exists everywhere, you need to create some contrast. And so I did so with this textural rug, but the textural rug in tone is similar. And so it feels very, very quiet in its approach, even though it's quite bold. This piece of furniture I had made when my husband and I were first married. Every time I see it, I think I'm going to get rid of it because maybe I want to change, maybe I want a harder surface, but it seems to stand the test of time. It's so practical. I love the way these little elements kick out. It doesn't take up space, but equally what I've done in this room is that I've used this beautiful Japanese 1980s table. It has a leaf that comes down and could be raised on occasion. Sometimes you need just a little bit more table and the legs kick out. And sometimes what I do when I'm working from home is that I perch at the corner of this stool and I find myself working here on a laptop from time to time on the weekends. I just love the way that this space is versatile. I like furniture that's usable in a variety of different ways. I always like to think about how can this be formal, how can this be informal, how can we add sleekness to rough texture, the idea of old and new. Sometimes contrast allows to bring interest to individual items, putting things side by side. That is, one is elevated and the other one is not so, putting junk next to fortune. This is where the magic happens. This is where I feel it really highlights the beauty in each of the pieces. I'm originally from Canada, and moving here in the UK, I only came to appreciate beautiful curtains when I've arrived. They have a way of really making a room feel like cotton balls. It just warms the soul to have beautiful curtains in a window. These curtains, I love the fabric. It's by Christopher Farr. It has a very relaxed feel to them. And I love the way that you contrast a shiny surface with something that's a little bit rougher. And I feel that the fabric in these curtains do exactly that. The gathering at the top is almost just a pull and it just slopes forward. It's not fussy and it's a bit messy, and I quite like it because it shows the thickness of the fabric. Fabric like this in a window has this unbelievable ability of absorbing sound. It adds so much to a room. You feel so warm and comfortable when a window is properly dressed. This window is facing the street side of the property, so people come in through the entrance. And I love these sunshades. They're from Tatiana Tafour. It is an abaca, which is a banana leaf, and it's incredibly sustainable. But the magic of this, apart from being beautiful, is that it allows a lot of light into the property. But as you come in off the street, magically, people on the street don't see into the property, so it provides a lot of privacy. And I think that these are the most magical blinds in a window. These frames on the wall, this art piece was the very first piece of art that I bought with my husband. We were traveling in the Middle East and we went to the beautiful city of Damascus, which is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world. One evening on these narrow little streets, there was a gentleman just selling art. And I just approached him and asked him questions because I thought that these shapes are rather peculiar. But the shapes are actually of the women of Syria. And if you go in closer, you can see that some of them are looking at you with one eye, two eyes. Some of them are not looking at you. But they're very contemporary and slightly naive. And I love the notion of these. You know, they're very powerful and they bring back a lot of wonderful memories with my husband in the early stages of our marriage. And I think of them often You know, I love the color of the yellow. I love the contrast of the black. I decided to frame them in some wood so that they didn't feel too contemporary, that they had sort of an oldie worldy feel to them. And I think that they're incredibly powerful pieces and something I will always cherish. When we walked into this house, the bones of the property were amazing. However, it had had a lot of time to collect dust. We had to redo all the plumbing and the lighting. We changed some of the configurations of the room in order to accommodate modern living, and we added a room at the back of the house instead of a traditional conservatory, which tends to get very hot in the summer and cold in the winter. My approach to interior design is really mixing old and new. I don't really look at something and say this is Victorian and therefore it must sort of appear to be Victorian, and nor do I ignore the bones of the property. I think context is really important. I think that there is a lot to celebrate about the past, but just finding a way to twist it so that you can modernize it both for your day-to-day life, but also having fun with redeveloping an old aesthetic and making it new. Now we are going to go to the kitchen, which is the heart of the home. I love this kitchen, and the reason why I love this kitchen is because it's not a kitchen. It is effectively a corridor into the back of the house. I think it's a very clever use of space. In these Victorian townhouses, the reception area, which is the front of the house, is usually divided into two spaces. A space where you sit because there's a natural ability to create a seating area, there's a fireplace, and then there's this second room. Some people have decorated it as a desk area with some bookcases for television. Others use it as a dining space. But for some reason, the second half of the front reception room, in my opinion, is not as well used for square footage, which is why I love the fact that the kitchen is here. When you think of kitchens, we often think of very, very large spaces with an island. But if a restaurant can serve 250 tables a night in a galley space, why can't we in our own homes? In London, in these beautiful Victorian houses, we are gifted with very high ceilings. When you think of kitchen design, the height at which we stop our kitchen units tend to be much lower than the ceilings. But what I love so much about this is that you can use the top part of the kitchen cabinets for plates and glasses that you only use on the occasion. When I designed this kitchen, I specifically designed it as a corridor. It just happens to be a kitchen, which is why I've put a runner in the center. I've added a beautiful light fixture, as you would do in a corridor, and I've dressed the area with some more cornicing, like the entrance. When I chose the design for the kitchen, I've specifically chosen a very simple, modern, nondescript door. The reason for that is I wanted it to feel like a hallway. I didn't really want to draw any attention to any detail. The stone is also something very, very simple because I just wanted it to blend. But the real asset of this kitchen is the runner, the light fixture, and the cornicing. I wanted to draw attention to the ceiling, and I have worked with this beautiful, wonderful specialist painter called The Finish Effect. They created this beautiful textured finish, and the color is a rhubarb which matches and highlights the rug underneath. We cook a lot in this kitchen. I know there's not a lot of counter space, but we use every square inch of it. Every cupboard is filled with utensils, food, plates, serving, pots and pans. And we cook in here galore. We bake, we make, we cook, we entertain. I have 3 gorgeous kids. There's nothing I love more than having all their friends over, and especially when they have all their friends at the same time. There's nothing that I love more than cooking to entertain. I'm not so great cooking to feed because the creativity is limited, but when there are a lot of people, it's breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day long. I wasn't always an interior designer. My career path is not as direct as some. I started off in management consulting. I have a master's in business, which I did here in the UK at the University of Edinburgh. But I've always worked on the creative side of businesses. In my management consultancy, I worked with a team who created new sources of revenue for organizations who needed to find new markets and new ways to explore. And it required a lot of creative thinking. But as soon as my work was done, I was always in the pages of magazines trying to imagine spaces. Home is very important to me. It's a place where I retreat and I, spend time with my family and friends, where I like to self-express, and really where I just want to sit and be myself. So it wasn't a surprise that I decided in the end to make a career change. I did so before children. I wanted to work after I had my children. And I thought that management consulting, as wonderful as the career was a little bit too demanding in order for me to also be present in home. So I decided to go with my passion, which is interiors. I retrained, worked with a very well-known designer here in London who gave me my start, which I'm forever grateful for. His name is Nicholas Haslam, and I started my path on interior design. Beside the kitchen, I'm going to lead you to our dining area. Welcome to our dining room. This table sees a lot of action. I love the fact that it's so unexpected. I mean, who would have thought that a rainbow table in a dining room would work? And in my house, it does. I found this piece from a fantastic dealer in London, sans pretension. He had this gorgeous table which he used as a desk. I begged him to sell it to me, and he told me it wasn't for sale. And then one day I got the call. Without even asking a member in my family if this would work for them, I bought it. When my husband got home and saw this table, he was a little shocked, but not surprised because he's married to me after all. I said, "How much fun is this? No one I know has a rainbow table." He just sort of shrugged and said, "Whatever makes you happy." And it's been a topic of conversation ever since. My kids sometimes, when they invite their friends over, they'll say, "Have you seen our rainbow table?" I have been asked, how do you dress a rainbow table for a dinner party? My answer is, like you would dress any table for a dinner party. We have placemats, we have tablecloths, we have candlesticks, plates, forks, and knives. I feel it's a neutral now. When I dress the table, I do add color because my placemats have color. I sometimes also love using those beautiful rattan placemats. My tablecloths are often patterned or solid in color. I always have dressed my table with a lot of color. So the fact that the rainbow table is filled with color doesn't really detract because I love the colors that are here, and all the colors that I use tend to blend together because, again, it goes back to the idea of designing a home with a large color palette in mind. So when you bring in the items with the colors that you love, they all work together. When bringing in this rainbow table, there came the question of the chairs. Now, usually with a table that's slightly more solid, you may want to go a bit more wild with the chairs, but the opposite is true here. We really wanted something quite sobering because the table was the main event. So we chose these beautiful chairs. They're from West Elm, and they came with a white upholstery, which I don't often use a lot of white fabric, but I thought that they were perfect. The height also gives a very calming effect to the pattern and the radiancy of the table. I love this chandelier. It is a beautiful piece of art. The woman who made this is a wonderful lighting sculpture designer by the name of Margit Wittig. She made this beautiful piece for me for the size of table that I have, and the pearls for each of these areas were specifically colored and designed to highlight the table and to work with the artwork in this space. There's not a lot of space here. It's specifically and only for dining. So we were able to use as much structural space in the skylight and the different colors to bring it all together. This piece of work was painted by a friend and artist, Laurie O'Brien. Every year I get together with my school girlfriends. There are about 12 of us, and we go on a weekend adventure. One year we found ourselves in Los Angeles and we were invited to this very bougie place in Beverly Hills. There were a lot of photos taken. I then, when I got home, learned that my friend Laurie was doing these painting series that she found on Instagram, the study of people spending time together. She had chosen one of the photographs of our girls' weekend in Los Angeles. And she happened to pick this picture. It's myself and two of my best friends. So it's really serendipitous because she didn't know it was me because I was slightly unrecognizable in the photo. I ask you, which one do you think I am? I'm the one in the yellow skirt. So many people, including my mother, thought I was the one in the red trousers, but I'm not. This is my best friend Charla and my other best friend Kath. This is a beautiful work that I love very much. Her name is Barbara Campbell. She does these beautiful decoupage, layered, sewn, painted and fabric pieces. They're very architectural, structural, and a beautiful study on color. This brings me so much joy. The various different shades of some of my favorite colors. When I eat dinner, I'm on the opposite side and I look at this quite often. I enjoy getting to know it better and better with every time I look at it. I love to entertain. I love to cook for friends. I'm not really great on the day-to-day, but to entertain, I love it. I like having a lot of people over. I like participating in parties. The things that I make tend to be quite easy. I serve family style, right in the center of the table. Everybody can help themselves. It's quite relaxed. We often start at the beginning of the evening, sitting down, cocktails, hors d'oeuvres, snacks, and then straight to the table. I don't make a fuss. I ask everyone to be casual. I just love the idea of just spending time together and getting to know people. It's really the greatest joy and one of the most wonderful things to get to know friends, take the time, and have conversations that you don't often get to do any longer. Who talks on the phone? Everybody's forever texting. So this is really a place where we get to know our friends. So I'm going to lead you to this zone, which I call the non-committal sofa. I love the fact that this house has tiny little sections. This little corner sofa here was designed because when my children were younger and they had their friends over, there were always these mums that would come over. And I don't know about you, but my children, the minute they heard a mum was over, they would run with their friends straight upstairs and try and extend the play date as long as possible. But mums would always just stand there hoping to get their children out and never wanted to commit to sitting down for a cup of tea. But to make them comfortable, we created this little tete-a-tete corner where you could perch in a non-committal way and just have a quick catch-up while the children figure out that the play date is over. I have this uber sexy, creative corner of leopard print right next to rainbow. Why did I know that it works? Is because in my opinion, animal print is a neutral. This happens to be one of my favorite vintage rugs in the property. It is a beautiful piece from the middle of Arabia. It's Anatolian and I love it because it's so soft and it's absolutely luxurious in its tone, its texture, its pattern, and its color. It brings vibrancy to a darker area of the property, and it's one of my favorite yellow tones there is. So I recently bought this chest of drawers. It was a very plain wood, oldie-worldy chest of drawers, but I loved the shape. This area of the house was a platform where we often watched the children do plays, dances, acts. And to remind me of those fun days when the children were young, dressing up in costumes, putting on a show, I wanted to create in an art form. The serpentine shape of this chest of drawers is like a stage. And I had it painted by these beautiful artists to reminisce of the days when this area was once a stage for our family. This illustration was inspired by a Japanese illustrator who loved to use traditional storytelling for her art form. And I loved it so much, and I wanted it to be playful and childlike, that I incorporated some characters from our favorite tales when we were younger. And if you look closely, there is a little Red Riding Hood and the wolf in the audience. I love ceramics. I mean, this whole property could be filled with ceramics if I had my way. This is a beautiful fruit bowl that I bought during my visit in Los Angeles a number of years ago from this fantastic person. It's called Neeland Interiors. It is from a Mexican artist. I love the playfulness, the roundness. I love the color. And I equally love the fact that they introduced this playful little terracotta, unfinished component to the bowl. I find it really beautiful and additive here, and it is a catch-all for loose wires, keys, change, some of the day-to-day things that just happen. These light fixtures are from the 1970s, and I love them to bits because they could be sculptures, but they also double up as light. It's really additive to this space in the evening because it's quite dark, but I didn't want to actually put a lamp with a shade. So it really provides some beautiful lights. What I love so much about these fixtures is the fact that they are wisteria. The spring in England is absolutely beautiful. There is a bloom every month of the year, and wisteria to me is synonymous with England. It is a beautiful purple tone, and it is really, really joyful, and I love the structure of these light fixtures. Next, I'm going to take you to our living room. So this is the main living room of the house. We spend a lot of time here, day and night. We have this huge long sofa that I've designed. It's called Envelop. I love the length of it. Two people can lie down and not even disturb one another. The height of the arms are not particularly high because I wanted them to feel like a cushion as if you were in the bed. It is really designed for lounging. We could put the entire family on the sofa, including our gorgeous dog Lola and our cat Toby. This chair here is another chair from my furniture collection. It's called Transported. It has to be the most fantastically comfortable chair in this entire house. Again, the height of it is quite low, and the curvature at the back makes you feel very, very cozy. There is a beautiful traditional shape at the top. This idea of transported is because it is a very oldie-worldy chair, which I think is fantastic in contemporary spaces. Specifically upholstered it in a beautiful fabric, a chintz by Pierre Frey, and I added a contemporary spin by using a really, really taut, sort of solid color purple with a beautiful antique border by Pink House by Rebecca Cole. Next to the chair are my tables. They're called Let the Light In. Again, they have a very modern feel and a very shiny feel. And I love the contradiction between an old and a new piece. It is incredibly convenient because you can easily put a glass down. You can move it around from place to place. You can use it as an extra chair for the occasional extra guest at the dining table. They can be used indoor and outdoor. These tiny little chairs are called Perfectly Small. These are designed specifically to be like a stool, but more comfortable. They again have this round curvature back. I love them because often in these Victorian houses or these London houses, we don't have a lot of width to our rooms, but we ask them to do a lot. So these chairs could easily be turned around so that if we have a lot of people over and we feel like watching television, everybody can have a seat and be very comfortable. But equally, they can be turned facing the crowd and we can have a fantastic conversation. I love this rug. It was the first rug I've ever designed, and I love it very much because I find it to be traditional and modern at the same time. It's called Infinite Lines. It is inspired by these beautiful tiled floors that we find in Europe. I love the idea of playing with faux finishes. The idea that a rug could mimic a tile with the grout lines is particularly exciting to me. I like the way that you can play with various different textures and patterns in different ways. This is a beautiful painting by my wonderful friend and wonderful artist, Selena Baudry. This was probably the most serious and the biggest piece of work my husband and I have ever purchased. I love it very much. It actually came at the same time as I was pulling this room together. Just by accident. I just love the way that the colors dance, and it reminds me of a burst of spring, which again in this country is one of the most beautiful seasons. It looks beautiful during the day, it looks beautiful at night. I love staring with it. It gives me great inspiration for color. I applied a lot of color to my work, and I chose a palette that I think looks really beautiful in this northern light, but that has a lot of fun and a spring-like feel. There's very, very good energy, and I chose a palette and then I applied it everywhere, haphazardly, in every room, a variety of different colors, and together as a whole, it works. We are now moving to the garden room. Welcome to my garden room. This room is often used during the day. In fact, we spend most of the weekend mornings here just lounging around and reading the papers. We're quite old-fashioned that way. There's nothing like pulling out the newspaper and reading it end to end. You learn so much. This room is a labor of love. It is a very artful room. The idea of being crafty and artistic is important to me. But I also love the idea of naive shapes and a little bit of a DIY angle to it because I think it brings a lot of charm. Some people go for walks, arrange flowers, or read to relax. Well, I really love to cut paper. I love decoupage. It is a wonderful art form and it's something I enjoy doing very much. These shapes are really an extension of that. During COVID, in lockdown, I was doing quite a bit of decoupage and papier-mâché and a few other things to keep myself creative and busy and enjoy the time with my children. I actually cut all of these shapes myself. I was playing around and I just found paper and I started to create bigger, larger scale shapes. And with masking tape, I went around and just stuck things on the wall just for fun. It just dawned on me that actually anything that is sculptural and large and naive and has scale would make unbelievable wallpaper. But I didn't find any in the market, so I just created it myself. So this mirror was created for a pop-up that I did a number of years ago. It was actually used on the ceiling. It's really just 2x4 that's been painted. The idea of the shapes is really to mimic what you would find in traditional molding. But I took a Bloomsbury approach to it and I made it slightly looser, more naive, more playful. And I love it so much because this is really not valuable at all. Through the artwork, it has become more valuable. I love it very much. It reminds me of that very creative time during that pop-up. And it's so wonderful to see it in this room. It works so beautifully with the wallpaper, the scale, and its composition. Below this beautiful 1970s vintage console table is the ottoman that works with the adjacent chair. I love this large-scale tapestry fabric. This is really a nod to the idea of this being a garden room. Tapestry, greenery is just incredibly soothing. It is beautiful and wonderful, and green is my favorite color. This is the other side of the garden room. This is where all the reading happens in the morning on the weekends. My family lounges here. We read the newspaper, magazines, we have a coffee, we catch up on the week, and we sometimes plan for the weekend because there's a lot of logistics with many children and our own activities and friends. We plan in advance and we love it. We just enjoy spending here. It's a very, very cozy room. It's a very, very soft, cushiony sofa, and the light is extraordinary. These Inuit pieces were given to me when we were just married. I love Inuit art. Being Canadian, Inuit art is incredibly important and a wonderful art piece for the heritage of Canada. What I love so much about Inuit art is that it's very naive in its approach. The colors are absolutely extraordinary. There's a northern light to them. They're very, very soft in nature. But because of the content and the shapes, I find them very contemporary, even though they've been doing this for a long time. I love these Inuit pieces. They remind me of my home in Canada. This coffee table is very special to me. I commissioned a wonderful maker and artist by the name of James Shaw. He uses recycled plastics to create his furniture pieces. It's a process he's developed, and he squeezes it out as if it's like a big ice cream scoop. All the shapes fold on top of each other. And for a surface, what he did is that he flattened it out, and the texture is extraordinary and beautiful. But it's also incredibly hard wearing. It's great for coffee cups, warm tea. The sunlight doesn't disturb it. I think it's perfect, and it doesn't take up too much room. We can just slide it to the right and left, however we need it. This is the second rug that I've created. I love it very much. It's called Reimagined. It's because it was reimagined from an existing vintage piece. It is a 1930s Swedish pattern. It's so, so beautiful. It feels very at home here. Again, the shapes are naive, but the patterns feel very contemporary to me. The colors used are soft, that mimic the Inuit art. I love the way that it captures this space and holds it together. I love the needlepoint. It is perfect for a garden room. It just feels English, but foreign at the same time. So these caned chairs are gorgeous. They're called Malawi caned chairs. I love them because rattan and caning, I feel, are absolutely beautiful in a garden room, in a living room, in any room. It brings a touch of loose, casual glamour to any space. I had it painted in this fantastic teal color. It's the same color I used in the front family room. I love pulling in colors from different rooms in different spaces. It's the way in which you hold an entire house together in terms of a color palette. I added the cushioning. I love the way that it shapes the chair, and it adds that extra level of comfort. I take comfort very, very seriously. I want people to come over and stay for a while. I love these curtains. They were designed by this wonderful fabric designer by the name of Ottiline de Vries. She made these patterns and colors for me as a custom favor. What I love so much about them from her design is that they were reminiscent of the shapes I've put on the walls, so they were a sure fit. We matched the colors, she created the scale for the space, and now we're using them as curtains. I think they're wonderful, playful, traditional, modern, and appropriate for a warm but bright garden room. When I walk into a space, I immediately get a sense of what colors would work. There's a palette that develops in my mind. And I really take a very holistic approach. So I look at the color, I look at contrasting colors and harmonious colors, and I develop quite a large palette of colors. And then what I do is that I choose different colors to different rooms according to the mood you want to feel. Color is emotion, and different colors evoke different moods. So I do think about that. But I apply this large palette throughout the property, throughout any property. I don't just say one's a pink room, one's a red room, one's a blue room, and hope that they all stick together. It's a way for you to be able to confidently know that if you choose to take a monochromatic view on one room, it will work with the bottom room that you've taken a more colorful approach. It's a way for the whole house to fit together and that all the colors intermingle. And it allows you to add contrasting colors or harmonious colors in different rooms, and it will work together. And now I'd like to take you upstairs to our bedroom. Before we go into the bedroom, I'd love to stop and talk about these amazing, neat people. They are created by this wonderful artist in France by the name of Nathalie Lété. She did this wonderful installation of these dolls where she created as if it was a butcher, and she hung all these beautiful dolls because they are actually pieces of meat. And I love it, especially Mr. T-Bone Steak. You can kind of see his name is written here. Because my nephew, who I love dearly, I have several nephews and nieces, his nickname is T-Bone. So I initially thought, oh, maybe I'll buy this as a gift for my sister. But I really didn't want to give it away. I love it so much. I kept it for myself. And I hung them just outside the door because, again, it's incredibly playful. There's a bit of irony and tongue-in-cheek in it. And I love the fact that it's a Mr. and Mrs. because it's leading to the room of myself and my husband. Welcome to my bedroom. I love this room. It is really the only place in the house that is truly ours. What I wanted to do in this room is envelop myself in just this artful, wonderful, calming space. I love the color blue for the idea that it does feel calming. And when I found this beautiful wallpaper, which is by Schumacher, it's by a wonderful friend and gallerist called Peg Norris. They work with artists to create beautiful artistic lead wallpapers. I couldn't resist. It looks like my room has been watercolored. It's absolutely stunning. You could see some touches of the watermarks in the scale of the paper. And when you lie down in bed and you're enveloped by this large scale, beautiful artwork, you really feel so comfortable, so relaxed, and really on your own. The bed tends to be the focal point in any bedroom. So it would be a missed opportunity, in my opinion, just to dress it all in white. I like to pull colors from the walls into the bed and play with the textures. Because the wallpaper is large in scale, it allowed me to choose tighter, more interesting, more textural fabrics for the bed. I've chosen to dress this bed this way to play on these textures. You have a bit of iCat pattern for the top cushions, a woolly, cozy central cushion, and I use this beautiful vintage scarf to cover these accent cushions to pull the tones and the details from the colors of the wallpaper. Lastly, for the bed, I have this beautiful antique cloth that I found in Morocco, and I use it to cover because the touch of detail is exquisite. The headboard was custom made. I really wanted to have something very, very playful. I love the various different corners, but ultimately it's modeled after and inspired by the beautiful garden chairs we find here in England. This is a shape that you see time to time in these beautiful historical homes in the garden. and I just love it so much. It has a contemporary bent to a traditional idea. These beautiful lamps were a gift from my mother. She asked me what I wanted for a housewarming gift, and it really was the easiest decision. These lamps are beautiful and are made by my former boss, my former employer, Nicky Haslam. He found these magnificent Picasso-esque vases, which he created a mold for, and from which these lamps were crafted. The rug here is vintage. I bought it here in London from a wonderful dealer called Emily's House, and it is Moroccan. I love this soft, peachy tone. It is pinky in nature, but adds, again, this idea of serenity and comfort, and it's rather appropriate in a bedroom to look at these textural, woolly patterns, because, you know, the idea is to walk around bare feet, super casual, and really feel like you're treating yourself. This artwork is by an amazing artist by the name of Daniel Hernandez. I love it so much. They're portraits of my children. I always knew I'd love to have portraits of my children, but wondered what it would be. Some of the traditional portraits, albeit beautiful, it was not something that I really wanted. I wanted something more artistic. And when I learned about this artist, he does stitched portraitures. He came over one day, took a photo of my children, and then stitched them to these fabrics. The detailing is extraordinary. He even created these beautiful shapes, the smocking of my daughter's dress, the stitching of my son's checkered shirt. He even incorporated the stitching detail of the fabric used on the chairs that they were sitting. They are a treasure to me. I love lying in bed and looking at these pieces of work. After all, they are my greatest joy and my greatest pride ever, to have these 3 beautiful children that give me so much happiness and love. Now let me take you to our bathroom. In our master bathroom, I wanted to continue the theme of serenity. I used the various different tones from the wallpaper to pull out the blues that I love. There's a very soft blue paint on the wall and a deeper blue paint on the ceiling. I love painting ceilings. I love changing the colors of ceilings. They're incredibly additive, and they really bring an element of surprise. I am in love with tiles. If I could, this whole room would be tiled. But what I decided to do is focus on the floor. These tiles are made by Balanium, and they are painted tiles. They're very artistic. You can even see the brush strokes in them. I love this texture and pattern. It reminded me of my time in Japan. I really was inspired by the Katsura Palace. The use of the check in Japanese culture is extraordinary and really well suited in a tile form. I wanted to replicate those patterns and bring that artistic feel even in the bathroom. These blueprints was the first interior gift I ever received. It was a gift from my mother. In the early 90s, I was a Martha Stewart diehard fan. She had such beautiful ideas. She offered these blueprints of ferns in her magazine. It was sort of a buy 6 of these and so on. And my mother thought that that would be a really great gift for me. So I received them one Christmas, and she had them framed. They have followed me ever since. They have been in my main room, in a side room, and now they reside in the bathroom. I love the way that they draw you into this space. The memory is very, very dear to me because they were given by my mother, but equally, it was also the first real inspiring person in interiors to me, Martha Stewart. She is the best, a badass. I love her. I love bathrooms that feel more like a room than a traditional bathroom. I think it's very warming and it's residential. One of the things that I like to do with vanities is sort of treat them like they're furniture. There's nothing better than finding a piece and then refurbishing it for a bathroom. In our case, because I wanted to hide some medicine cabinets and increase the mirror space for us, I created the doors as if they were facades of antique chest of drawers that open up to this cavernous space to hide towels and extra soap, the things that we all need. And equally, one of the fun things to do in a residential setting to make it feel more residential is to actually hang mirror on mirror. These were found pieces at a flea market. They were matching, and I just hung them on the mirror just to frame the area and give a little bit more of a decorative interest. The thing that I love the most about my home is the fact that it is open concept, but it has zones. We can see one another in every single part of the house, but at the same time, there are tiny little corners where you can go about and do the activity that you need to be doing, such as reading or watching television or hanging out or cooking or eating. It uses this space very, very well. As you know, large cities have a limited amount of space, so every square foot is very, very important. We want to live openly and we want to live together, but we also want certain areas to be able to block out other things. And equally at the same time, within these zones, because there are tiny little walls, it allowed me to decorate each space in its own unique way, and it all fits together from the front of the house all the way to the back of the house. Now I'd like to take you upstairs in the Hall of Memory and onto my study. I think that in a family home, it's really wonderful to hang pictures of your children, your family members, and friends. One trick I highly recommend is actually finding ways to make the composition look uniform and decorative. One way to do this is to use very simple frames and to actually highlight something on the border. In this case, I used wallpaper, the same wallpaper that exists in the adjacent corridor. It allows you to actually hold the entire composition together because it is one of the unifying themes. Now I'd like to invite you into my study. Welcome to my study. This is really effectively my home office that doubles up as a guest bedroom. I love hiding away up here in the house. It is a very cozy room. I've decided to paint it in one of my favorite colors that I created with Koenig colors. The color is called Mr. Bateman. It's this gorgeous pinky purple, and I find it incredibly soothing. I get in here and I feel lost in my world of creativity. I thought about this room quite a lot. I wanted it highly decorative, but also quite modular. It was a bit of an experiment. A lot of people in London rent, but yet they want to decorate. And I feel that they should be allowed to do whatever they want with their walls. One way to do that is to create panels. You can effectively choose to panel your room with wallpapered panels and then create a decorative effect by hanging them like they're pieces of art. Here is an example of how that could be done. This artwork here is part of a screen. The screen is divided into 3 sections, and I hung them on the wall rather than leaving them into the room because I love the idea of the shape. It's just so beautiful, the way that it's been stitched, the way that it's been painted, and equally cut out. There's something very raw about this. The color is gorgeous. It has a chinoiserie pattern, and it is a piece of artwork, and it should be hung on the wall, and it should be celebrated, even though it probably was used at one time to hide or to dress or to create a division within a room. Here is an example of an artful rendition of my perfectly small chair. It was a collaboration that I did with a vintage fashion designer, Clemmy Myers, and an artist, Selena Beaudry. Together, we created a story called Mrs. and Mr. Bateman. This chair is an example of how this all came together. It's the story of the long-lost nephew who had a horrible relationship with his mother. And he tore up all of her clothes and artwork And when he went for therapy, the therapist said, you need to figure out how to find forgiveness. And what he did is he took all these pieces that he tore up and he stitched it together and created a chair. And now he sits on his horrible mother with disdain. I often spend days or evenings in here just puttering about, looking at photos, going through some fabrics, because I keep all of my fabric samples here. But the sofa bed is absolutely fantastic because I take the desk, I turn it against my shelving for fabrics, and I pull out the bed and it becomes an extra room for guests. We have a ton of sleepovers here. My children have a lot of friends. I do love a full house. I want it to be full, so we have to make these rooms work for us. So this is a fantastic sofa bed, which I reupholstered in a beautiful pierre-feuille fabric in this fantastic purple, because purple is a fabulous color. This little workroom for me is incredibly inspiring. I just love sitting in here. It's so cozy. I get lost in my fabrics and my ideas. It allows me to close the door and spread out. I have tidied this room for you today. However, on a work day, there are papers and pieces of fabric everywhere. Right over here, I have a beautiful little cork board that I actually pin ideas. I stare at it during the day and allow my ideas to form. I pull things off and put things on. I add fabrics, I add photos. It allows me to really, really spend time with my projects and think of them. Every desk needs a desk lamp, but one of the things I love so much is to think about things outside of the box. When I found this desk lamp online from an antique dealer in north of England, I knew right away it was mine. The tulip shape is just so perfect for working. It has the actual structure you would need for task lighting, but it's playful and I love looking at it. It makes me smile. For me, the home is definitely an expression of the personalities who live there. I think it's very important for everybody to just see themselves in their space so that it's congruent. When you buy things, you have to buy things that you love because you're going to be living with them and they give back to you over time. As you share your time with these objects, you love them the more you look at them. You get to know them. And therefore, to express yourself in that way and to have the courage to buy the pieces that you love, it will bring back so much joy to your life. And therefore, a home to me is a reflection of the people who live there.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.